Yes.
Approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have a quorum with her there. 1, 2, 3, 4, yes. The minutes, approval of the minutes from February 15th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
A second.
Favor, then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. She's delayed. Public comment. Is anybody here for straight public comment or for the? Here for public comment or for the?
Not for the open, not for the agenda, just the.
Okay.
Just the open comment.
Come on up, state your name.
Hi, I'm Heather Gerber and I'm CFO at Polk Electric. I see later on in closed session, you do have the renewable ordinance on the agenda. So I just wanted to reiterate our position from last time on our solar project that will be going up in Georgetown. That has a substantial start and having to follow the proposed ordinance would increase costs and could cause deadlines to not be met. The construction phase is really a culmination of a lot of time of planning, a lot of hours spent working and a lot of dollars spent on material. So when you see the solar panels go up, I mean, that's really the final stage of it. We've been planning or working on this project for almost 2 years. In the planning phase, One Energy, who we're working with, did verify that no permits were needed. So the project moved forward using that information. Like I said, collectively, we have over 600 staff time of our staff time along with One Energy, and $500,000 has been spent on materials. In addition, a contractor has been selected. We've submitted an application to our generation and transmission provider. And there is a time frame for that project to be up and running in order for us to get the locked in pricing. This project is also in coordination with about 9 other projects in the state. So, we asked due to the late stages that you consider to exempt us from this proposed ordinance.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else? Too bad. We don't have Mr. Luke. I think at this time we have nothing.
Nothing.
Okay, thank you. All right. We can get our presentation started.
Chairman O'Connell, if you don't mind, I'll introduce Mike.
Sure.
Before I do, good morning, everybody. This is an exciting meeting, primarily because our consultant, Mike Gilder here, is here from SEH to provide a presentation on the 100% design for the ATV UTV intensive park in the town of Sterling. If you all recall, this is one of the 13 projects in the comprehensive trail network plan. In fact, it was deemed an immediate construction project. As you also may recall, this intensive use area was intended to include a variety of challenge courses, including obstacles, sort of a mud bog and a sand pit. And it sort of aligns with what we've been doing out there in regards to like the Jack Pine Loop, just expanding recreational opportunities on county forest land. This project is predominantly on county forest land, but we will use or try to use or utilize some town land for access. And I'll talk about that a little later. The timeline for completion was anywhere between 2 and 4 years. We talked about perhaps, the county doing the clearing and grubbing and the fencing as early as this fall. But we also want to align with some DNR grants as well. However, the first step is complete, which is the 100% design. And we've been meeting with SCH periodically. In fact, our last meeting was last Thursday, where we did the final review of the 100%. So with that said, let me introduce Mike, and I believe he has a presentation as well.
Good morning. Just a slight correction on my name. It's Mike Van Gilder, for the record, if it matters. And I'm with the consulting firm Short Elliott Hendrickson, or what we refer to as SEH, offices in Rice Lake. And let's see here, we have a little presentation. It's just a half a dozen slides or so. I'd like to just cover the kind of the background location of the project. We did secure some public input along the way as we developed the design, and then sort of review some of the highlight of the design, and then end up with some questions if you have any. It's been a pleasure to work with the staff. And I guess I'll just start with recapping a little bit. Thank you, Bob, for the introduction. This is in the town of Sterling, and it's on the south side of Evergreen. I think we measured about a mile or so west of the ATV campground, and it does connect to the Sterling Loop. As Bob mentioned, this project was identified as a high priority immediate construction project in the Polk County Comprehensive Trail Network Plan. And the park was inspired, and I guess you could say modeled after the Syracuse ATV park near Nakusa, which our team toured with county staff prior to starting the design. However, that is, I think, like a 400-acre park or something. It's just a whole nother scale or another size. And our firm was hired back in June of last year, June of 2022. And then I guess we'll jump to the next slide to, oh, sorry, I should have jumped on this one. This was just kind of the concept plan that was in the comprehensive trail network plan. As you can see, high priority immediate project. It makes connections to the local trails, to the Sterling Loop, et cetera. And one of the primary goals was to accommodate all rider abilities. Next slide, please. So then for the public input, that was a required component of the design. We did create although it was fairly simple, it was a public input survey. We had 69 respondents. It was online where respondents could access it, by clicking on the barcode and so on. And you can see the results there. The one at the top, it's difficult to read, I apologize, but the point I wanted to make is that this the most popular score, these were basically rank all the park amenities, features, and that sort of thing. And by far the highest ranking amenity was having trails for all skill levels, and that was, like I said, a goal of the park. So some of the other things that were ranked, and I'll just read them down in order a little bit for your benefit. Obstacles, sand pit, challenge course, bank turns, mud pit, hill climb, and so on. So we were pleased to secure input from the public, not just from staff and from consultants, but also from the public. Next slide, please. We've now completed the final design documents, the plans, the specifications, the bidding documents and such. And we understand the county's applying for some funding here to help fund the project, but now we'll just take a few minutes and kind of summarize the proposed improvements. It's close to 60 acres, and there's about 3 miles of new trails within that block. There's a half-mile two-way trail, which is sort of on the east side of the property, which provides access to the site and then provides access to all of the courses and the trails within the property. There's a 0.6 mile beginner's course, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's got a few humps and a few things, but it's pretty narrow and pretty low speed. There's also a 0.6 mile challenge course, which I think you'll find is pretty interesting. There are obstacles on the challenge course that we'll share with you that I think the riders will find entertaining. And there's also a 1.25 mile ATV UTV track. My words, maybe not your words necessarily. I don't want to use the words racetrack, but it's more of a riding track with humps and bumps and bank corners and that sort of thing, more of a thrill course. And then finally, 1.5 acre sand pit, sort of in the center of the site down low, that is a very popular attraction at the Syracuse Park. The design features a full perimeter fence and gates, of course, at the 2 entrances and signage. With that, we can look at the next slide. This is kind of just a layout of the site, and I apologize. There's a lot of, it's pretty busy here and tough to see. The north is up and there's evergreen along the top edge. This is where I mentioned the two-way trail is just a straight trail, two-way traffic so that people can get in and out of the park. And then you can see the beginner's course is up on the north edge. The ATV UTV track sort of meanders around and comes down to the south end where there's some more hills and that sort of thing for the riders' enjoyment. And the challenge course then as well is kind of down in the southeast portion with the sand pit in the center. So that's just kind of how it lays out. Next slide, please. And then I just wanted to cover some of the challenge course features, which are, I think will be a highlight of the park. We've got, similar to the Syracuse site, there's I guess it's eight features, angled logs that sort of work the ATVs and UTVs like this. Just, it's more of a handling thing. It's not a see how fast you can go. It's just to kind of work your machine and enjoy the challenge of it. Rip wrap or large rock pit. There's tires, combination tires and logs. There's a log hill as the trail climbs. Also kind of offset railroad ties, sort of a thing that again gets the vehicle kind of articulating. Large tires, another similar to the tires to log. And then there's some luge banking, which, you know, we don't have a photo, but it's more of a, if you can picture like from the Olympics, the luge, this would be kind of the experience you would get from that. And then finally, some rock steps that I think we listed in the bidding documents as an alternate, because it might be expensive. I guess we'll see, you know, how that turns out. But let's see, I mentioned signage, perimeter fence, 2 gates. I guess I think that was my last slide, wasn't it? Yeah, that was my last slide. And I guess if there's any questions, happy to entertain those now. Or if anything the staff wants to add, happy to discuss that.
I'll maybe start. So now with the beginner on the north, we don't have a parking lot there. So how do these beginners get there? How far is it to get there? A mile to get there? You think they're gonna be outgoing? Get in there a lot right there.
Yeah, Bob, should I comment on the original scope? The original scope of the project actually had included a parking lot at this site, a pavilion, a restroom. Am I missing anything? I think those 3 features. And due to the proximity of the other facilities at some point during the design, 30% after the concept design, those were eliminated from the project. So it's strictly a riding park without the other infrastructure at this point.
Without a parking lot.
Yeah.
So what is the closest that mile away?
It is
Wow.
there.
Yeah.
One.
1.1 mile to the east is the campground. And what we thought we would do, and we thought we came to a consensus, is apply those resources for the parking lot, pavilion, restrooms to the existing campground. So that's where people would stage, because as you know, that's sort of the terminus for folks to enter the Sterling Loop. You can access the Jack Pine Loop or go 1 mile and 1 block west to access the ATV UTV intensive park, this new feature.
You think they would use the road to get there a lot?
They would. Evergreen?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm just following up with Kim because as I looked at this, went through all the pages, I saw the same thing, that there's no parking lot. And I understand the cost and trying to tie it in with Well, what about this low intensity one, whatever we call it? You're gonna come with your kids or grandkids, and you're not gonna ride down there with them necessarily. So you're gonna drive down, park in the pit. And that's what I can see, because that's what.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. End up with some, a lot of people parking on the side of the road. They got little kids with the little smaller ATVs. A mile drive, they'd be worn out before they got there.
One of the driving factors was the cost
Sure.
of putting in a parking lot, taking away from the actual footprint of the what we were trying to accomplish when we had one 1 mile away.
Okay.
So that was the biggest driver on eliminating it from this site is the amount of space it take away and the cost to do it.
That'd be something we just look. If it gets used or too many vehicles parking there, we maybe that.
Yes,
Yeah,
Move forward with the parking lot
we
or
can move
something?
forward with the parking lot at that point, but being that we were constricted by 40 to 60 acres, pushing that into that area, eliminating some of the trail and
Yeah,
work that way.
okay.
So if it becomes an issue, then we could look at getting the parking lot.
Sure. Okay. That was my only one that we had. A lot of people parking on the road.
Did you notice the two-way trail?
Yep.
It's in the, I guess that would be what? The southeast corner. So that trail links to the Sterling Loop. That's another access.
I just consider beginners. When my boys were little, it was a little,
Yep.
pretty small ATV, you know, and then when they're out of gas, pull them around, and they ride them. So I get there and they're out of gas. Now I gotta go back and get gas or whatever. I'm just saying. You know, they make 2 free rounds. If they're 10 years old, they'll be wore out. They'll be. So.
You know, we're on the same, because I follow along, because when Ben showed, films that you guys have been moving down south and seeing these parks,
Right.
they showed it. You know, boy.
Right.
Yeah,
It's one of those little tinier machines. Yeah, just thinking in the future, like,
yeah.
you know what? You know, look into it after we see everybody driving back down parking in the ditch. Which there is room, and that's what. who knows.
What did you think of the fence? Was that an initial thing too, the shorter fence? and stuff?
You know, I think the concept of a perimeter fence was in the design ever since the beginning.
Was it?
And I think that our initial design had a chain link fence around the perimeter and the costs were very prohibitive. So the current plans show a woven wire fence around the perimeter. And I think staff felt that was important to protect the resources around it. There's town property to the east. There were various reasons why the fence was important, but there are also gates where the two entrance points are.
Sure, okay. The only questions I have.
It's a good practice to have it fenced, and we learned this from both Syracuse and Barron County as well. Of course, if you know, the lot to the east is a town lot, so. And I could talk about that a little later. In fact, I was going to, when we address next meeting's agenda, but we met with the town of Sterling and they recommended a fence, among other things, so. And then to the south is a, red pine plantation, and then the western perimeter, we want to segregate from the horse trail that goes through there. And there's, it's a best practice to have this fence. And staff, looked into some lower cost fence, like Mike said. The sort of woven hog fences with a post every 8 to 10 feet. And then the corner posts are gonna be a lot more robust.
All right. Great. That's, Sharon, do you have any questions?
No, I don't think so. The only one that I was concerned about too was how far was it from the equestrian trail? Because I've had people ask me about that. And then was the fence still included or not? So those were they were answered.
Okay, good. Okay. Thank you. then.
Thank you for the opportunity to help you with the project. Appreciate it.
Let's make that part about your stage and your equipment. Or, a few reasons you can have it. All right. 10 minutes, go ahead. 7 5.
Sure.
Some of it,
Yeah, I can do that.
some of it.
Yeah, I can. Chairman O'Connell, we're addressing agenda item 7.
Correct.
7A, update of the comprehensive trail network plan. Well, I guess I'll get started with the feasibility study for the Gandy Dancer to look at alternative routes to connect St. Croix Falls to the Burnett County line for equestrians and ATVers. Currently, we're in the process of completing our interviews with the communities, the municipalities in which the trail intersects. So we hope to have all those completed by March 8th. We have met with the city of St. Croix Falls, Milltown, and Lewis. Again, hoping to meet with Frederick, Centuria, and the Village of Luck by March 8th. We have updated you on the focus group meeting processes. As of today, we've received position statements from the Ice Age Trail Alliance, Woolly Bike Club, the St. Croix Falls Parks, Arts and Trail Commission, the Polk County Snowmobile ATV Council. I believe I put the Parks, Arts and Trails Commission in your packet along with the Snowmobile ATV Council position statement. So those are in your packet. Since that placement, I've received 3 more. And I'll put those in your subsequent packet for March 15th. And in fact, they're already posted online on our Comprehensive Trail Network page. So I received one, I believe earlier this week from the Polk County Librarians, the Librarian Federation. I also received one from Pioneer Retirement Home in Luck, which is a key stakeholder. And yesterday evening, I got one from the National Park Service. So I'll put those into your packet. Might need to have a conversation about the position statement from the Park Service. So we're still working on the 4 alternatives. I can imagine there'll probably be more than 4. In fact, I know there will be more than 4. And I know our consultants, SRF, are interested in coming back in mid-April to this committee to present their findings. Yes, sir.
Good.
Couple other updates regarding parks and trails. At the last meeting, we talked about the Stour Candlelight Night Walk or event. I just talked about the 70 to 90 snowmobilers that were diverted. Well, I believe it's in the packet as well. Something I failed to mention, roughly 300 participants attended that event. So I'll just point that out. That's about it regards to the Comprehensive Trail Network Plan. We're staying on task. I updated the progress report. So again, that's online. I know Sharon is always interested in that.
Thank you.
And to just waste a couple more minutes, I guess I can talk about the Land and Plus Water Conference as well, since it's an environmental service update agenda item. I put that in the packet.
We got next, we do all these position statements in one packet.
In one,
Please,
so not as they roll in.
not as they come in, let's keep them all together. I think
So should I hold on to them until?
till the end or something too. I mean, like the ones you just got, we don't have yet, but we have these 3. I think we should keep them all together, not spread them out.
Yeah, I've been just putting them as I receive, but yeah, I could compile them. Again, in the spirit of transparency, I'm posting them immediately, so they're available online.
But it'd be nice to have more in one place.
Okay.
We get them at the end, maybe they'd all be right together with our.
At the end? Okay.
You think so? So that we know where they all are, not go back by different meetings and stuff. Know what I'm saying? That we have kind of a list of who they are, like an appendix or something that we.
I'm not sure when the end is, though. I mean, when,
Oh, we quit getting.
okay,
Yeah,
right.
I'm just thinking we'll have 3 this time, 2 next time, 3, we're gonna get spaced out, we're kind of just. Nice to have them all.
Sure. Okay, I'll work on that.
Or a list of just. Read a list of just what they are when they come in, so you have that list. You know, of that. People that are interested like that. Any positions, then we keep that list, and then at least we go back and find them. Just think we should.
So yeah, I could create a list, like an ongoing updated list of, as they come in.
To keep ourselves or do whatever. We know what the, that who's sent those in.
Sure, so I could just periodically update that as they come in. And those, that list would go in the packet naturally, right?
Yeah, I mean, we just keep a list. Instead of putting one of these in each one, I mean, we could read their. You know, the park one and stuff from St. Clair Falls and the snowmobile was ATV and snowmobile too. I see that was both, so. Actually, one of the 300 people and 70 snowmobile, that's a pretty busy trail.
Pop, yeah, it was a nice weekend.
It's used pretty well.
It's a popular event. Yeah.
All right.
And then lastly, in your packet, again, just under the heading of Environmental Services Division update, I put the Land Plus Water Conference agenda and sessions in your packet. That's ongoing. It's actually starting today through Friday. And Supervisor Olson is not here. Obviously, he's attending that learning event with our land and water staff, which includes Eric, Karsten, and Trent. They're attending. So
He is online, by the way.
Brad got online. Okay. All right.
I want to thank Supervisor Olson for going to that event. That's
There's some interesting ones, mostly
mhm.
Thursday, Friday. So
Yeah, and groundwater
Groundwater ones and stuff, so.
and bear management.
He skipped that. He knows too much about bear management. He's gonna skip that. The rest we get the same.
Sorry?
Minute to get kind of ready for the public hearing. Let's catch our breath for 10 seconds. Geez, that one letter, I want to get it before, okay. You get ready? Yeah, they want, just in case, so they know what we are. Sure. Unless you look it up.
So the memo that I just passed out, that would be addressed on 6B for everybody else in the room that doesn't have a copy. So that's not regarding the public hearing.
We did the private road, we'll switch, but we'll talk about that.
Okay. And Claire, do you have the GIS map up for that property? Perfect, thank you.
Second, so let's read it in.
Sure. I got 9:29 on the computer, so We'll use that as our official clock. Right, we're good. Hit recorder's on. All right, so we're here for a public hearing. Don Johnson and Michael Maxon request a conditional use permit to construct and operate a kennel and or boarding facility for canines on a parcel located in section 13, town 33 north, range 16 west. Property is in the town of Lincoln. The parcel number is 032-00298-0000. The parcel is 39.19 acres in size. And then if you've got it up. Okay. So when we look at the property that Claire has highlighted in red, there is the subject property. It is fronted on two town roads. We got 68th Street here and 90th Avenue on the south end. There's a large mapped wetland right here in the middle that goes up and around. And there's a small undelineated wetland that's about right here, where I'm pointing to. The driveway for the property is way up there towards the end. You can kind of see a little brown spot right there coming in. They've got this, yep, right there's the driveway. Comes in, this area here has been cleared out. There's a ravine here that I've got a photo of that kind of drains down into the wetland. Then right in this area, there's the proposed kennel facility. And that area is just kind of open. So you can see towards the south, it's more deciduous trees. Towards the north half though, it's all probably 20-year-old pines or so, and they're 20-25 feet tall. You'll see in the photos. There is the Beaver Brook over here that comes down through, but the property is not within any floodplain or within any shoreline zoning area. The town was notified as part of the proper class 2 notice, as well as all the property owners within 300 feet of the property. The town did not make any comment on the hearing, unless Jay's gonna do that today. But we did receive 6 letters and that were submitted to us, and I had sent those out to you guys yesterday around 11 o'clock. The owner purchased the property around 2016. They're proposing on building a 44 by 56 foot shed for the dogs. That shed would have, it sounds like 8 inside kennels, and then 8 kennels in addition to that are kind of a 2-part where they have an inside component and then an outside run as well. The property is zoned agricultural 20, which allows for a kennel as a conditional use if it is at least 300 feet from the nearest lot line. So the proposal is 300 feet from any lot line. The closest one is the north lot line there, and that would be, looks like between 300 and 320 feet from the building. The nearest neighbor is to the north. Right here, there's a house kind of right in the middle of that parcel. That's roughly 300 feet from the north lot line of the parcel. But from the boarding building itself, I'm estimating about 800 feet away. There was a 3-bedroom conventional septic installed on the property back in 1985. I'm not really sure if it still exists out there or not, but it definitely was inspected and installed by Michael Wilson. I'm not even sure where it is, but I'm assuming it's got to be where that proposed house site was cleared. I couldn't see anything when I was out there on site. So with that, that's what I've got for the facts. Claire, can you pull up those photos? Okay, so I'm on 90th Avenue again. This would be the southwest corner of the property. I'm looking directly north. This is basically the west lot line, just a ag field in that area. Okay. This is looking down along 90th Avenue. And then at the woods, as you can see, it's kind of younger growth, not the pine trees in this area of the property. Okay. This is looking at that wetland slough. This is kind of the west side. You can see some pines in the background there. I've got another picture of it. This is a little bit better picture. I'm on 90th, looking directly up towards where the kennel building would be. It's up there right on the other side of those pines. I'd say it's probably about 100 feet north of the edge of the wetland there. This is the intersection of 90th Avenue. So 90th Avenue is right here. 68th would go up to the north here and go to the south as well. That's the bridge in that for Beaver Brook and that you read about in some of the comments that we received. This is looking from 90th Avenue up 68th Street. One of the comments that we received was from a William or a Bill Johnson, and he owns the property on the right-hand side or the east side of 68th Street. And that the Maxon and the CUP request here is on the left side or the west side. The driveway is, again, very far north on the property. It's about where the blacktop ends. So this is looking directly west in towards the property. And that they do have power there just off the road. They've got a bathhouse. We've never permitted this structure. I don't know how long it's been there. They had like a solar shower in it with then a drain in the bottom. So anyway, it's more for our future reference. This is where I believe they're talking about the house site in this area. So this is further east than the proposed dog kennel. This is looking directly towards 68th Street. So I'm looking east. Back at the driveway, it's kind of hard to see, but the snow banks there was where it was plowed. Okay. This is looking west now. That ravine that I was talking about is off to our left. The dog boarding facility is up there in the opening. Okay. This is that ravine that kind of drains down into the wetland. Okay. This is, I'm just past that ravine now. That ravine was to our left and I'm a little going and that, or I'm facing south. The wetland is right through the trees there. You can kind of see some of the white. Okay. Okay, so this is back up on top. There is a stake here and a stake there. And then there's a stake over there with some pink on it and another stake there by those birch trees. That is the proposed building area for the kennel. Now I'm standing up there by that stake and I'm facing south again down and you can see the white back here in the trees. That's the edge of the wetland. Drops off pretty good, probably 20 feet there. Okay. It's kind of hard to see, especially on these screens. It's better on my computer, but this back right there is one of the exhibits that we had received from Katie and Nick Lauterbach. That is their property on the south side of 90th. So that would be the second closest home to the site. So this would be the south side of the building. So the wetlands over here on our right. I'm facing pretty much east. So I'm standing in the southwest corner of the building. So you can kind of see what the approach would look like for the driveway coming in. This is kind of trying to get a shot going to the north. That field past the pines there, that's owned by John Cool. So that is the property line where the pines stop. And when I was on site, I thought it looked a little closer than that, 200, 250 feet and that. But when I did measure it this morning, like I said, it should be between 300 and 320. So another photo, this would be the northwest corner of the building. This is an area going to the west. It's kind of an open area there that's been cleared. So. Just, there's deer kill out there, so anyway. I always ate good. So, and then this is looking back towards the house side, that going to the east. That's probably the last picture. Any questions on any of the pictures or any of the property?
No.
No. I don't have any, no. I looked pretty good to see where everything was.
Supervisor Olson had sent me an email with some comments, but since he's online, I'll let him explain his comments and questions. And that maybe even after there, yeah, Yep, correct.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. So does anybody have questions of what you just went through for now? All right.
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
The applicants are there. Oh, cool.
Hello, I am Dawn Johnson and my husband Mick Maxon's over there. He doesn't feel like walking up with me, I guess. It is kind of my dream, so I'll face the heat. I guess I can just answer questions if anybody has any. I mean, I laid it out in my document. Unless you guys want me to speak to that.
What kind of dogs? Breed wise?
Breed wise, I guess I'm just kind of going for black dogs because I kind of laid out that that's usually the unadoptable dogs are black dogs. Typically, we tend to end up with black labs, but it's, they're all mixes for the most part. So
it can be just about any breed.
yeah, exactly. I mean, they look like black labs, but then they're, a Heinz 57. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. That's questions, I think, too.
Well, and I will say this, that I'm, not to be a negative towards pit bulls, but that is definitely not something I'm interested in getting into the breed of a pit bull. So I will.
Rottweilers or any of those that are.
Yeah, I mean, Rots are, yeah, that's, that I do shy away from that kind of breed just because it's just more that, so not to be negative, or if there was some need that somebody really felt like, if community wise, like I've talked to Arnell at the Humane Society in Amory, and if there was some community need that they really felt strongly about or something, maybe, but yeah, so I guess I should express that pits and Rots are not something I, just your Heinz 57 little dog that can be adoptable, so.
That can be, even though you say they're not.
Yeah, well, right, well, unadoptable by other people's standards, right,
Okay.
so.
So you're gonna build just the shed first, but is somebody gonna be there 24/7? Who's gonna live there?
We will be living there at the point that the dogs would be there, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, for sure.
so before you have,
Okay.
dogs, your house will be up and.
Correct. We will have to, yep, we will be residing there at the point that we would have dogs coming,
Okay,
yes,
that was
yeah.
another question people
Yes.
asked. Okay,
Yeah, that's why I kind of said this is gonna have to be a phased thing, but we need to know we can do this before we start.
everything else.
Yep, exactly.
Did you happen to read the letters from everyone else?
No, I have not, sorry.
I sent them to you this morning on your email.
Oh, did you? I have, yeah, it's been a busy week already.
Just to answer any of their questions.
Well, I have questions.
Okay, yep, we're not done yet. I'll let you in.
Should I ask now?
Go ahead and
Yeah.
ask and then we'll.
Okay, are you just bringing dogs from the local areas, or are you bringing dogs in from other states or other countries, or just local dogs?
I mean, I guess I really want to start this small, so I would really just kind of rely on, in talking with the director, Kim Johnson at Arnell, and she just said that, again, on the front end of this not even being a real building yet or a real thing yet, she said, yeah, this sounds like something we would want to collaborate with. And so I would just start small and start local. So, and it just sounds like she said that, yeah, local rescues sound like, so I think it would be perfect to do that. And if they brought in dogs from other countries or states, locally, then maybe, but it would be
Okay.
through local means would be the only way I would be doing it.
Okay,
Through
okay.
Or through, you know. I would not
Thank
be
you.
seeking, yeah, thank you.
So some of the concerns in the letters were barking outside at night and stuff, quiet hours, different things like that. They
Sure.
said if one got away, you know, the fence, double fence. Can they dig under the fence? I mean, black lab.
Yeah.
dig.
Dogs dig, yeah.
But do you have a way to put a fence so they can't get under it? You know, they wouldn't have to dig far to get under.
Oh, yeah, there's escape artists out there, right? Yeah, I mean, again, though, that's the thing, you know, we sent out letters just ahead of all this to the neighbors saying, hey, these animals are unpredictable and we're gonna do what we can. Just like, I mean, we could own dogs without this kennel that are gonna do this stuff, right? That are privately owned dogs. One of the things, one of the pro tips that I got in talking to a kennel owner that my husband and I went and looked at their kennel too, that we really liked, that just came up recently last week, is as far as the noise is, and it selfishly, it helps the owner too, is especially in the winters with the driving snow is so you got your kennel run on the outsides. The dogs go outside into their kennel run, and let's say they see a squirrel and they're gonna start barking at it. And you have your dogs that are gonna constantly bark at that squirrel all the time. And you're gonna know those from your other dogs. And they have garage doors that they bring down just to shut them up. And so that's a huge, they're like, that's a saving grace. But where it's also a saving grace is the driving snow into the kennel runs. That garage door that comes down when the snow's bad, and it doesn't bring the snow into the kennel runs where you have to go into their kennel runs and shovel it out. So it's twofold. So that was a pro tip that I'm like, hey, that's easy enough to be installing garage doors. I mean, my husband's a builder, so I say easy enough for him to do things like that. So that's stuff where it's bonus for us for the work of shoveling, bonus for everybody for the noise of the dogs. And we don't want to live with that noise either. I mean, it's like, it's kind of twofold. So we're definitely going to do things to deal with the noise. As far as the escape artist type stuff, yeah, I mean, I can't speak to, we're not going to dig, 10 feet down and drive fencing down. I'm not gonna, but I will certainly deal with that. I called Stephanie Marshnick with Lincoln and just said, how does this work when it's the nuisance complaints and stuff like that? And we talked about it a little bit, and, and I'm gonna work with everybody that we can, because I get it. I mean, we don't want to be this annoyance to the community, but I just have a bleeding heart to help these dogs too. So, and there's a need for it. So, but yeah, I mean, I can't stress enough that we're gonna work with people and, but yeah, if there's other questions, keep popping them at me, but I'll try to read some of this.
How many dogs are you? I mean, do we have a?
If you guys are looking like,
How many do we have like 100 or whatever?
I don't want 100. Yeah, I don't want 100. Like, that sounds like.
That's one of the questions, and that it sounds like Brad can't get his thing to unmute. So I think
So I
that,
tried to ask some of his questions that I can remember too.
yep, and that, so I think you've answered the one as far as define what a black male dog is, and that he had in parentheses, black lab, Rottweiler, pit bull. I
Okay,
think you've already touched on that. And that define what a small or medium-sized dog is, or one large dog. And how many interior only dog kennels?
so, okay, so to me, in my standards, I'm not a dog weight expert, but like 100-pound dog is a large dog to me. So that's what I would consider, or maybe I would say 80. Let's go 80-pound dog. If it's a big dog, that's what would go in. If somebody, and I'm talking more for boarding or whatnot, like if somebody, if we're going to talk about somebody, one of you guys brings a dog to board at our kennel, and you have two dogs that are 40 pounds and you're like, they do well together, so I can put them both in one kennel run together. That's what I'm saying. If you bring me your 80-pound dog, that's going to go in its own kennel run. So that's where the numbers come into play, as far as if I can put two dogs into one kennel run, then that obviously changes the numbers for boarding purposes, really. As far as rescues and the unadoptable dogs, that's a whole different factor, because do they get along, do they not get along? And I'm gonna have to play that by ear as far as learning these dogs. So, and we answered the black lab or the black dog portion, I
Yep.
think. And what was the other part?
And that,
Interior
so
kennels.
how many interior dog kennels? Yep.
So I have plans, and I have pictures of this if you guys need to see it, but I have plans for counter space that's essentially 3-foot deep counters. And then essentially 3 by 4 foot deep kennels that are just interior, so they don't have access to the outside. And again, for boarding or the super loud dogs, right? So that they can't even go outside. And that would again be a large dog or 2 mediums or whatever we have to do. So that would be just, I think I'd have to look at my drawing, but I think I have space for 6 of those type of kennels, 3 by 4 feet inside. So when we're talking like, that's what I didn't know, if you would set restrictions, like you can only have this many dogs. Again, easing into this, my number count, if you were gonna say you have to give us a firm number, I mean, I'm looking at what I'm saying here today. I wouldn't want to start, I don't know, if you're gonna tell me to give you a number, then I can give you a number. If you're saying you don't have to give us a number, I'm not going 100, I can tell you that for sure.
Well, I think it'd be nice to know a max number to know if you can take care of it. I mean, can you take care of 50? Can you take care of 25?
I don't want to take care of 50.
That's what I'm saying. So, mean,
I mean,
neighbors would want to know if, say, a door got kicked open, do we have 100 dogs we got to go look for?
yeah, no, I don't want to take care of that many. I mean, and again, this is me starting this up and we'll see type where it goes. My concern is if I tell you 25, is there going to be some penalty to me if I end up with 26, you know, in again, 3 years when this is actually, or 4 years when this comes to fruition. That's where I'm worried, is if I say,
What would be your max and you know,
My
almost
goal,
like a daycare,
like-
you have to have how many people to take care of them? Can one person take care of 25 dogs?
I think I can, but yes. I would say, I mean, I think 25 sounds like a nice round number if I had to say, but that's again, now if I'm boarding and stuff and and I have some help, right? That's what I would
So
say.
maybe we would say, I mean, I think that would help the neighbors and everybody too to know that. how many are there.
At the best, I mean, that's, you
That would
know,
be your max.
I would hope, I mean, I just don't, I mean, it's hard to say though.
But I mean, if you came, do we have limits on kennels if there's so many?
Yeah,
animals?
exactly, that's my
So if there
question.
was a condition in that placed and that it's 10 dogs, 25 dogs, 50 dogs, whatever you guys said.
She could come
And
back
that-
always
And
come
that
back
she would have to come back for another CUP if she wanted to exceed that
exceed
threshold.
that number.
So-
Perfect.
Okay.
But couldn't you make it easier, Jason, and say minimum of, maximum of right off the bat so that you have that area in between?
You wouldn't have to do the minimum and that, because it'd be
Just
from
to the
0
maximum.
maximum then. So,
So-
you know,
So if she's worried right at 25, we could say 30 right away.
you guys had just seen a CUP and I realized it wasn't for a kennel and that, but it was for Nick Walton's mine up in the town of Eureka. And remember in that when you guys originally granted it, you granted it for 5 acres and that, and then a month or 2 ago, he came back and he wanted to go to 20 acres. And that, but that gave him the chance to open it up, to see what he had for material there, to see if there was gonna be issues with the neighbors and stuff. So it was kind of like a phasing in process to it. So that's what this would look like. And that if you guys set it too low and she wanted to exceed it, then she would have to come back through the process again.
And that's what I had asked Lincoln was, you know, are there other kennels? You know, I was trying to get a sense of what does this look like? But I mean, I'm fine. Honestly, if we want, I just don't think, if you guys want to say 30 max, I don't think I'm gonna want to go over that. So I'm fine with that.
That would give you that 3 years. If it did get busier or
If
something.
it got
You're
busy,
still,
exactly. If I got that busy that I was like, and to me, that would be more the boarding side that got busy, right? I don't see that. God, if the need for,
that you
me
have
to help.
24/7 ones. I mean, the whole week, you'd only have.
Right.
Max of 30, but you might board 10 over a weekend.
right, it'd be,
So it's
yeah.
still kind of mixed. or whatever.
Yeah, if the need from the community was for me to be housing unadoptable dogs to that extent, and then I needed to come back and ask for more help, then I guess so be it. I don't know.
All right.
So then, sorry, some of these might be coming back. I think you've talked about what is an unadoptable dog. It's not necessarily that they can't find anybody, but it's just that they're not popular. So that was one of his questions. But then another question is, oh, how many dogs would you be talking if they're all large dogs? Is what he had a question on.
Like, that's where I would think we're talking about. I think I'd have space for 16 to 17.
16 or 17 large.
Yeah, based on how I'm kind of computing the space we'd have. I kind of have one extra space that I could make up if I had to.
And possibly double that then if they were smaller breeds. from
Right,
what
if
I'm-
they, and I mean, I guess if they were little
Okay.
ankle biters, I could, yeah.
Is there is it legal or appropriate to limit breed types? You know, if you say you're not interested in pit bulls and those things.
Meaning me, like
Yeah.
where I can, that's how I understand it, because again, it's my property and that's where I can, and that's some of my research says that I should, just for my own mental health, kind of limit my, like, that's why I'm saying black dogs and all that, so that I don't open myself up to feeling a bleeding heart of accepting every single dog that somebody approaches me with.
Right.
So, yeah, I think, yeah, I can say no pits, no Rottweilers.
Can we condition this?
The committee can condition it as long as she's willing to accept
Yeah,
that
that
condition.
might help.
so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I mean, then again, we have to realize, like, I did one of those DNA tests, and who knows if there's really scientific proof to it. I have this dog that looks like a black lab. He's almost he's a tiny % black lab, and then he's tiny % Chihuahua. So he's gonna have 1%, he could have 1% pit bull, we'd never know, so if he looks like, yeah, exactly, that's just it, or require me to, which would be the worst part of this.
Okay, but if you're willing, that would be a good condition.
But yeah, to say no
And
pit
how about
bulls.
the feces and that, how are you gonna get rid of all that?
So by picking it up, unfortunately, with my hand or a pooper scooper, and I personally want to compost it. We just actually talked to our septic guy again. We're approved for, septic holding tank, and he actually thinks that we should err on the side of going septic instead of holding tank. Now, in talking to him further, composting would just be so much better for everything if we can. And obviously so much of the poops outside. Again, talking to dog kennel owners, they're like, you don't clean out the kennel and push all that down the drains anyway. The big stuff you pick up. So that's where I've researched it, and I just plan to build it. I mean, granted, we're in the winter months, so we don't get composting abilities through our winter months, but I'll just be burning it up through the summer months to get that stuff composted and use it on our property, which we have tons of. Yeah, exactly.
West of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, tons of space there, and we just had it logged, so we got a bunch of trees we need to regrow, so it'll be kind of nice for that, so.
Brad, have any more? That was.
And then, well, we had some proposed conditions. I think he's seen in one of the public comments about a quiet time. So he's throwing out there a quiet time, 10 PM to 6 AM. And then there's about 7 question marks after it. So that was one.
We can talk to the dogs about that.
And then number 2,
We can, I mean, we can definitely, if we get these garage doors installed, definitely we can try that, especially with the loud ones and stuff, yeah.
number 2, and that I think she's already addressed, and that no dogs will be allowed to be kept until the applicant has established their home there.
Absolutely, that's 100%.
And then the number 1, I'm doing these in reverse order. Inside perimeter of all fence shall have a material 18 to 24 inches wide to keep dogs from tunneling under to escape, concrete or other material. So I think that's what he's trying to prevent, is from then being able to dig. And he's thinking that if it's narrower, that, if it's 4 inches wide, they might still be able to dig underneath it and get out, but if it was a longer width and that then they would have to go out and around.
So,
So that's what he had
You're saying
for,
like a curb and putting your fence on it, but otherwise you could tunnel like, I'd say rebar. Every so often.
well, so the outside kennel run, they are gonna be on 4-inch thick pad, they'll be on a pad of 4-inch thick.
The inside is gonna be cemented too.
The inside will be cemented, so they'll be on it'll be a 10-foot overhang, actually 10-foot overhang. The kennel runs will be 6 feet. So they'll have another 4 feet of cement overhang and then and that's what'll allow us those garage doors.
Oh,
I mean, so yeah, we should be okay
So they
there.
shouldn't have a spot to really dig. Yeah.
I mean, other than through 4 inches of kennel, yeah, and re-rod or cement and re-rod.
But what about like the outdoor run and that or the outdoor open area?
That, well, then, okay, so
That can
then
be concrete.
the outdoor open area is just the grass and fenced in area. That's encompassing that. That's where I'm like, I mean, to have to dig in a fence, how deep, I suppose, maybe we could trench it, I guess. But that's where yeah, I mean, maybe we could. I'd consider that, but again, that's,
How big of an outdoor area are you doing though? I mean, if you trenched it and went down.
yeah, that's not
a foot or
horrible.
10 inches, it wouldn't be too bad,
Right,
to be safe at least.
right. That
'Cause you
wouldn't be
would catch
bad,
'em Before, if you're there every day.
right.
You
That's
can't
not
treat
bad.
that.
Exactly. Cementing it, yeah, that's not bad. And
Cement.
And this is like, the outdoor fence thing isn't like on the immediacy of the plans, but that's what I want to do at some point so that we can give these guys some exercise and stuff. So they're not as crazy barkers, so that they're tired.
And that would protect if they got out of one, there's another safety net that they can't.
Yeah, I
Right.
think in the comments and that you'll see that they've done, or they've suggested
Yeah.
various things like, having woven wire go down below grade, and that to trench it. And that Brad brought up and that having like the little concrete footing, obviously in that where you're attached to your building, if you got 4 inches of concrete and that fence grows down really close to that concrete, realize that there'll probably be an inch or two gap for water to move and stuff and that, but they're not gonna be able to fit underneath that fence because it's
No.
gonna be concrete underneath it. So I think it's that same philosophy
Sure.
for the outdoor pen is what they're looking for.
No, and I can see that. Yes, that part I can see trenching down. Yeah.
I would take a condition that it was trenched down 10 inches or something.
If I do when I do the big fence. Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, any other questions? No. Are you here for or against? Can you want to speak?
I would like to see.
Okay.
Should I
You come up.
step down? Did you guys want this back?
Official copy. Or do you want to read them right now?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ma'am, if you come up, state your name.
Hi, my name is Catherine Bai. I guess I have some questions. Nothing has been mentioned about insurances. What kind of insurance? I mean, my husband's old coworker, they went to a relative's house. Their 3-year-old child was maimed by their dog when they entered the house. That child almost did not survive. What did he have, a plastic skull? 3 years old. Oh my God, horrific. I am not in a position to be running out of a way of a loose dog. No matter how much fencing you have, there's always a potential. I didn't hear very specific breeds. I still heard unadoptable dogs. That's by, everybody has different standards. We also have livestock. We have 8 grandchildren. We have another neighbor with 70 chickens. In the winter, roughly 250. We have another elderly neighbor that has around 40 sheep all year round. We had a problem with loose dogs a few years ago. They got into other people's livestock. Yeah, how does this insurance work? How are we gonna be compensated if somebody or our livestock gets hurt? Where do the liabilities come into? As to the garage doors, that's just gonna muffle the noise. I live on 90th Avenue, just southwest off the map here. The country where we live is very quiet, very peaceful. When one dog barks, I can hear it all the way down on the other side of 68th Street. You know, that dog only barks a few minutes at a time, but I can still hear it. I can hear calving season when they wean the calves from the moms. We hear it. I mean, it's not a nuisance, it's country living to bring dogs into our country neighborhood. I think it's unwanted, and please consider our quality of life that we have right now that's peaceful. Yeah, and just a kennel in our neighborhood just doesn't work for us. Sorry. And thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, can you take and pronounce your last name or spell your last name and then the address too?
Yeah, it's Catherine with a K,
Okay,
Erine at the end.
yep,
Last name by BYE.
okay,
Our address is 728 90th Avenue.
thank you.
Sure.
What's good for the insurance is we have the town chairman that takes care of those dogs right here.
Oh.
Yeah, it just happened to be wandering around.
Yeah, if you want, you can take care of those. Okay. Is there
Yeah.
anyone, who else is here? Yes, you can come up and rebut.
Okay.
Yes, that's why. Yeah.
So, and one thing, yeah, and I'm sorry, maybe when I wrote this about unadoptable dogs, I should have done a better job clarifying that. Because in this document I wrote, for me, that doesn't mean never unadoptable or aggressive or, some of the comments in there. And so I can totally appreciate what you're saying, like about dogs that might attack children or things like that. What I'm talking about are dogs that simply because they're black and people just bypass them for that reason, because that's just a color that people don't like. That's why they just because they like the cute little fluffy white dogs better. So, and sometimes they're just jumpy or they're just whatever. So I'm going to work with these local shelters to identify if it's a deemed aggressive dog. Most shelters are going to euthanize those dogs anyway. So I'm not going to be taking the dogs that are the shelters are already identified as aggressive, and I'm not just taking those dogs to take those dogs. I'm going to take the dogs that shelters or Arnell or whoever these experts can say, hey, this is a dog that if we can work with it a little bit more, a family can actually adopt into their home. And that's the goal. I don't want to just take a dog that is even an older dog. I don't want to take a 13-year-old dog that's going to be, euthanized just to die in my care, So that is definitely not my goal. I'm not trying to just bring in an aggressive dog in our community or on our property to be a terror of our neighborhood. So, and if in our neighborhood, you guys have a problem with any of that, just come up to our property, knock on our door, and I will gladly hear any of your concerns. We will be here for you. So I can appreciate everything you just said though. So because I kind of read that throughout a lot of the messages here, is that unadoptable, my choice of words was probably poorly chosen and maybe not defined well as to sound like an aggressive dog that nobody wants, but it's not really, that was not well said. It's just a young, energetic dog that maybe jumped on somebody and then they're like, oh, the kid got scared. And so I can kind of retrain that dog and take some time with it and calm it down a little bit, or it's shy and timid and I can bring that portion out of it to make it a little more acceptable dog. And that's what I mean by unadoptable. Give it a little bit more chance to bring out some personality in it.
Okay, and the insurance part, do you have to have some extra insurance?
Yep, I looked into that. I mean, a dog kennel needs insurance, yeah. So it's like, my insurance guy said it'd probably be $2,000 to $2,800 annually. That's
More
kind of,
business insurance.
yep. And it probably is more maybe for a dog kennel for all the obvious reasons, but yeah, yep.
Okay.
Jay has a question.
It does.
Oh,
I let you ask it.
I just wanted to ask one question at this setting. Are you a business? Do you have a business structure? Are you individual? Or how are you functioning?
At this moment, nothing. I
Nothing.
have no business.
Do you have any intent of anything?
I would have to definitely, if this all gets approved, then yes, I will be looking into that in the next few years. But right now I am a government employee and I've never been a business owner, but yes, I would be
Okay.
getting all that established in the next few years. This will hinge on all that.
Sharon, you have any other questions?
No, I think most of them have been answered.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't, main thing to me was about how many dogs would they be housing there? And I think we went through that in detail. And then, well, and then the information about noise, and we've pretty much covered that.
Okay. Anyone else? I think your explanation about everybody was worried it was gonna be pit bulls, everything that nobody. I think that was the scary, but
Yeah,
I think yeah, the poor choice of words, you admitted that. I think that was the worst.
yeah, unadoptable, right, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't want pits and I was asked too if I would be a, what was it, a quarantine contract or something like that. And I'm like, boy, I don't want that either. So like for quarantine dogs, I'm like, that sounds complicated. I don't want to be that either. So
All right, and of course you'd have, well, that and stuff, that's in your business plan and all that you got that available.
yeah, actually, but that's part of it. That's why I don't want to be, part of being kind of that foster paired up with Arnell is they manage that. They would do spays, neuters, all that, you know, when you're kind of a foster rescue, the food, all that stuff gets paid for. So it's not me
So it's
managing
through them. Okay,
through most foster rescues. Yes, exactly.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's good. All right, is there any other questions?
I wasn't that question. This has always been quite an interesting subject. And I had a niece, I still have a niece, but she went to she was a vet tech. She wasn't dresser, and then she went to the city. And I'm not implying that cities, you want to bring those dogs out here, that's not my point. It's that you can't believe how many people move and the dog is standing there on the porch. They just drive away.
Oh,
I mean, it seems, I don't understand it, but those dogs need some kind of care.
well, if we're good there, we'll go to public hearing. Start our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
You pull up the other Word document. Thanks, Claire. All right, so just like to start by going through some findings of fact. Basically everything that Claire's got shown there. I presented in my staff report. I don't know if you have any other findings that you'd like to add. Basically goes through the wetlands, the size of the parcel, the building, the sewer.
You know, what's scary is it's age 20. That's the only place that people can go. At least it's something that other than.
You're always
It's one of the
thinking.
That's good. It's one of the only age 20.
You're always thinking. We get dogs instead of pigs.
Yeah, 2,600 pages. Okay. So we got the nearest neighbor, and that's the property line, not from, I had about 800 from any other. So from any other building I was looking to is up about 600 feet, isn't it? That closest to the.
About 800, I
Almost
think,
800.
yeah, and that to a dwelling in that, so, yep.
Okay.
It's about 600 in that as a direct, but then it's kind of a little bit farther east and west, you know, so that's how it gets a little bit longer. So,
With that 3-bedroom, they have to upgrade that, though, don't they? That would be something when they come in to get their.
that would be in that handled in that through possibly their house permit, or they might have to just do all new and that, like I said, in that there was quite a bit of snow out there when I was out there. And so I couldn't see where it was. And being that it's that old and that the permit paperwork isn't real great on it, so. They didn't say anything, it just said proposed house. So, yeah, yeah. So I thought maybe it was a pulled permit and then it was never installed, but there was an inspection report from Spinell on June 10th, 1985, and that when it was put in, so. Gotta be there someplace. Mike Wilson was a plumber, so.
He's gone.
Yeah, Can't ask him.
Yeah, I did Southwest.
What's that?
I did Southwest, I did too.
It was an old perk. I don't know. So, yeah, still.
He had license.
So the
The
third,
wetlands at, okay, town
Yep.
roads, both are town roads, it's about in two town.
two town roads, yep.
And the town of Lincoln didn't say anything, they didn't.
Town of Lincoln made no formal comments, so, yeah.
Not yet.
Now it's too late.
No, never.
It's never too late.
Forever hold your peace.
All right.
All right, so with that, the third point there, and that is a kennel is listed as a conditional use in the Ag 20 zoning district. The proposed kennel does meet the setbacks. So with that, if the committee believes that they've met the criteria, our office suggests some of the following conditions. And I'll be kind of upfront with where these conditions came from. We had one that we permitted in 2015 and one in 2017. One was Play and Stay Pet Lodge down on the South County line, just to the east of Highway 65 in the town of Alden. Very similar. She wasn't doing the rescue side of things, but she was doing the boarding and then also grooming for it. And the town had some comments back then and some conditions. We haven't received any complaints on that use since then, so she's evidently doing a good job. And then we had another one, and that was up in the town of Sterling. And that one was for 32 of their own private dogs. So a large number in that, but wasn't doing the boarding and the open hours and stuff. So some of these conditions in that I went through are standard ones that we put on all of our CUP applications. And some of them, while it hasn't been talked about a lot here, we've been kind of on that rescue unadoptable dog side. And that is more for the boarding facility because that hasn't been addressed much. So these are just thrown out there. And of course, we can talk with the applicant on whether or not they are reasonable. So Play and Stay Pet Lodge is running hours Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, Saturday, 8 to 12, closed Sunday. That'd be for dog pickup and dog drop off. Grooming, would fall into that as well. There was a couple public comments that talked about quiet hours. I don't know how you could keep a dog quiet either, because I don't think they tell time. But anyway, Brad had thrown it out there in his comment, 10 PM to 6 AM. I thought that needed to be defined. So if we're gonna have some kind of a quiet hour in that, where there's not nuisance barking going on, I think the easiest way to do that would be to have those pets inside the building and that, but yet you still gotta be reasonable about, them having to go to the bathroom and stuff as well. So that's probably about as long as you could push that, I'm gonna guess. So the idea is that the building would be insulated and soundproofed, and that from the barking. And you could probably even tie in that's when the garage doors would be shut or something, and that on the building, if they're gonna do that, that's a new development from today. So that could be added there as well. Don has mentioned in that she will be living on site before they have the dog, so that takes care of number 3. Number 4, that's something that we've done with a lot of our conditional use permits, just so that the neighbors can kind of self-police, because we don't work nights and weekends. So if there is a dog barking on a Saturday that's getting to be annoying, And that they could at least call the owners.
So we should put Jay's number in there, number 4.
I know.
His town chair.
Jay doesn't come involved until number 12 in that, but anyway, so.
All right.
Yeah. Number 5, she's already addressed, just having proof of insurance, and that, which it sounds like they've already looked into that and know that that would be a requirement. Of course, it'd be a good business plan anyway. Number 6, just with the site, and that it is kind of tight there coming up to the building. And that to have a site plan indicating where the parking is and where those outdoor fenced areas would be. And that would be good. It's easy to provide us. And then number 7 is kind of what Brad was alluding to. I tried to elaborate on it, but about the dogs being able to burrow underneath a fence. And I tried to just kind of include several options in that, either having that 4-inch concrete slab around the perimeter or a footing or an underground fence from preventing them to burrow. If you wanted to make it 10 inches, you could definitely specify a certain depth. I didn't know.
Maybe do something so they don't go down 2 inches.
Okay.
I mean, leaves or something, that if we put 8 to 10 inches or something like that, I mean, it takes a little while to get under to move it. Maybe we should add something that you guys think. So that is- outside. That wouldn't be so bad.
No, I think
Okay.
you're right.
I would put like 8 to 10 inches. I think this will take a little while to get under it, on the outside fence.
8 inches deep. Okay.
Go 8 or 10 or something. You can almost catch them before they get out.
8 or 10, because if you go 8 to 10, and that they're gonna put in 8.
8 is
Of course, the minimum is all what everybody does, I know.
Okay. And they've already elaborated on this in their application. But like Play and Stay Pet Lodge, we did go out there and do an inspection in that before the inside of the building was finished off to make sure it was insulated. Sounds like they're gonna be doing some acoustic batting and that acoustic wool insulation. That'll probably be above and beyond. Typically, and that normal fiberglass is what we've approved in the past. So that would be in that number 8 there, just so that we did that.
So you would go up there also, plus the building inspector.
We would go out there and that to verify the conditional use, yeah. So. Number 9, to be going back to that one in the town of Alden. The town of Alden has suggested a condition of 15 dogs during the day and 10 dogs during the night on that application. And that because of the boarding, and so I changed that to 16 because that's what Dawn had in her application there. But definitely, I'm not advocating for a different amount at any time, but I just thought I'd throw that out as an option, and I don't know if they would be receptive to that. Anyway,
I think I wrote down that we would do 30 max. So if she had 10 there, 15, she could take 10 boarding ones or something. 15, yeah.
The muted Mr. Olson texted me and said, I know you all like this, don't you?
I shut my phone off. You can't text me.
His comment was max of 25, mix of big and small. So max of 25. But that's just his.
We're gonna overrule Brad today because he's not here.
But I think that's about the start. So I'm just thinking, so 30, if she gets going good, that means she's gonna have to come back in 3 years and ask for more. Right? If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Right,
Don't just-
she's maxing at 25. That's her comment.
Yeah,
Just put 5 more on there.
to be safe.
And then why are we having 16 day and 10 night?
That was that morning.
as an idea, yeah, and that's all it is.
That
So-
would be hard that every day somebody go out there, let them know.
Because if they're grooming, and that, I think you have it covered either way. But I believe what the town was saying and that, or what she was proposing is that I'm gonna be boarding 10 dogs and that day in, day out, overnight, you know, and that, but then I'm gonna have 5 dogs that come to my place to be groomed during the day,
Oh, I
you
see.
know,
That is,
so-
it's worded not well.
Yeah.
Okay. So number 9, we should just put that.
and that
A 30 dog max and just leave it.
maximum of 30 dogs, okay?
Just leave it open.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, by consensus, got that change in there.
Let Brad know. He was overruled.
I turned the phone off.
Okay. I can't- everybody shuts the phone off.
Everybody shuts their phone.
So number 10, all parking must be on an impervious surface. That's a standard condition.
Yeah.
All pets must be contained on the property. That is pretty standard. The only time where we might get into an issue is if they intend to walk them down the road, you know, or something like that. But then that brings in a lot of the other concerns where people have, and that with them being on the road with the other kids involved, so.
I'm
up
assuming
to
they'll be
you.
leashed if they're not.
Well, that brings into number 12, and that if a pet is outside of the fenced area, the pet shall be on a leash and not allowed to run on at large. And that, so that Jay doesn't have to chase it down. You know, so that's number 12. So
Take care.
that's why you got town guys, right? That's why you got employees. So,
Animal control officer
Yeah.
educated that we trained, sent him to college. He represents a number of townships around
At Daryl.
and counties, actually. He's very efficient, very good. You know, he's there right on time.
Yeah.
Does a great job. Hired because I wanted to get rid of the job myself,
yeah.
but he
So
does
that's,
well.
okay.
Number 13, I think this is something that they would have to do anyway. You know, all pets shall be licensed, up to date on their vet checks and have a clean bill of health, you know, and that, I mean, anybody that's bringing their dog there and that to have it boarded doesn't want to have kennel cough running around the place and that when they're doing it. So I didn't know how else to word that, but it sounds like in that the pets that are being rescued and that are gonna have free vet bills and stuff anyway to have that stuff done, so. Okay, number 14. A septic system shall be installed to collect the wastewater from the kennel and boarding building. And then just something that you guys have been doing lately is just to allow us to inspect it annually if we want to. So only if we have ideas that there's an issue.
Just maybe to help out, can they put a bathroom in out there and put it into this tank also?
They're planning on a bathroom and a full kitchen
So
out there.
that-
So,
So it can go into a holding tank.
Mhm. right, yep,
All right.
so. Number 15, any outdoor kennel areas, and that fenced areas shall not have any drainage towards the wetland, just going down on that because it is a good grade there. I think it'd be pretty easy in that to obtain that so that it just wasn't running and we had a gully draining down into the wetland with the pet waste that's gonna be out in those areas. And all the kennels shall be contained within that proposed 44 by 56 foot building, which she's agreed to. And then 17 is the property must remain free of citation, charges for nuisance, disorderly conduct, and any other illegal activity. That broad brush one that we apply to most of them. And then from the, hearing a lot from the neighbors, it sounds like they get along well with the applicants. So I'm just proposing number 18 is that the conditional use permit would be non-transferable to another property owner, the permit holder, and that is responsible to notify us if the property owner changes hands. Because we all know that Dawn might be really good operator. She's gonna make sure the doors are shut at 10 o'clock and everything, but we don't know who might come in there and buy it after that, so.
I have one other from Mr. Olson.
Shut your phone off.
Yeah, shut your phone off.
That's,
He just asked that his comment was no pit bulls or Rottweiler.
oh, yeah. That was the condition. You said that-
Yeah.
that's what it is, yeah. No aggressive. what would you call
Yeah, I
it?
mean, because I think, isn't there something where once the dog is deemed aggressive, I think that's like a
Yeah.
county or maybe even a city. There is something where a dog can be deemed aggressive. Once it
That you
gets
have
that label, like through a city or county, you
That
can
you
even
have
say
to-
that.
Euthanasia, whatever.
Yeah,
I mean. should we put-
I'm perfectly fine with, yeah, once a dog's deemed aggressive by a city or county, there's some process to that where it's like
Because
somebody.
Arnell has that.
Arnell has that.
So, yeah, it's
But
aggressive.
they just did one of those. It was chained to their outside doors and they had to put it down because they couldn't do anything with it. It bit 2 people in the whole 9, so. Yeah, they couldn't do anything with it.
So we
you
could
wanna
put deemed
avoid that.
aggressive and then maybe just add the pit bull with Rottweiler or something, because that's what the biggest thing is.
Is there anything in the town code, Jay?
I don't
We have
think
an
so.
ordinance, but I didn't memorize it.
I have the ordinance, town code ordinance, but I don't think it talks about that.
It doesn't address that.
It doesn't
Well-
address it. Right?
By calling out a particular breed, though, there's other breeds, there's other dogs that could be aggressive besides Rottweilers and pit bulls. I mean, there's other ones that could be, so why don't we just say aggressive, known aggressive dogs or something?
Here's kind of my wording on it, and that no dogs allowed that have been deemed aggressive or have caused previous bodily harm.
Yes,
So if there was a dog bite or something
I
like
think
that,
That's pretty much what we say.
That'll kind of cover it.
yeah, yeah.
corporation council
Joe.
also,
So,
yeah.
Who deems the dog?
I was just gonna say, that's the only part.
What's the definition of aggressive?
oh, gosh, you know.
Who is it?
Yeah, just, that opens it up to the whole neighborhood, like, oh, that dog looks aggressive, but if it's bitten, obviously, if it's bit somebody, that's obvious, but that's.
So should we just get rid of it deemed
I'm still
aggressive
fine
and
with
just say that no
I'm still
dogs?
fine with saying pit bull, because that's kind of a nationwide.
But I mean, how does Arnell?
You're gonna run into a problem with specific dog breeds
Yeah.
as well, because if you're not having purebred dogs on the
You don't
property,
know,
or
yeah.
genetic testing these dogs.
That's what I mean,
Yeah.
we would get, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
So by what, a veterinarian or something, or how do they do that in the cities? If you get bit twice, you gotta put your dog down.
Yeah, there is some legal,
There's kind of a legal.
there is,
standard.
I mean, if it gets bit, you report it to the police and then the police deem it a
You're a
aggressive.
mailman, did you get bit twice? You get rid of the dog.
Never been bit by it, sure been close.
Does Arnell have a?
There must be
What,
some,
what does Arnell use? How does Arnell identify an aggressive dog?
Maybe if we,
it has to be through law enforcement. It has to go somehow through that.
oh, it does have to.
I think it has to because that's how you have to report it and must have to go that way. Otherwise, how would people know if not by calling law enforcement?
I've ever had is German shepherds, and they're wonderful family dogs, but they can be aggressive.
Oh, yeah.
German Shepherd.
If you're not family, they're aggressive.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
If you're not, they protect their own pretty well.
Yeah.
Well, let's take the word aggressive out just for now,
Okay, no dogs allowed that have caused previous bodily harm.
or how else have they determined? What? That's the record, yeah.
Come on.
Because our Arnell has something in there that's when they're aggressive, because I think most townships too, I thought had that too, if there's something in that. Can we refer to if the town has any? What other word can we use?
So
Well, we've got kind of a catch-all in that the property must be in compliance in that with all other ordinances and stuff,
Right.
you know,
Oh,
so
So if
it's kind of a catch-all, so, yeah.
And it says aggressive, we can let them be.
Well, the county would be, aiding in enforcement on that issue then and that because their CUP would be subject to being revoked, and that if they don't follow the conditions, so, be a cooperative effort between the county and the town.
Without putting this under.
who makes the determination of the aggressive?
Well, we took that out, we're taking that out.
All right, who makes the determination that complies with whatever aggressive language is in the town ordinance?
Okay, what
We would
happened,
Make Jay do it then.
what happened, yes,
Is that your officer would do it, wouldn't he?
right. But see, what we did I addressed this when I first started about 20 years ago in that
Oh,
ordinance.
God.
I wrote that ordinance, or we adopted that ordinance. We are willing to obviously change anything as recommended to comply with any rules that you have established, that you may establish.
Okay.
So,
I think we leave it like that, then we'll find out
you're right.
maybe for another one, or how they decide an aggressive dog and how they decide to have to put it down.
Okay.
Because you wouldn't get it then. The dog.
No, right.
You wouldn't even get it.
I would
Because they'd
never
have to
have
put
it.
it down before they took it there.
But yeah, I wouldn't even be.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to deal with it.
Mm-mm.
We forgot too, I forgot to ask what you do with the dead ones, I forgot to ask for Kath. You're gonna have a pet cemetery,
No,
okay.
sounds horrible. No. See, that's his job, I guess. He'll have to deal with that.
All right.
And the last one, and that since they've offered it up, and that was having those garage doors installed on the end of the kennel runs and that are part of the building. And then that would aid for the quiet hours, so. So that's what I've got for suggestions, and then there are only suggestions at that, so.
Sure. Okay.
Do you have any issues with any of them?
The only thing I wanted to clarify, you just got me with what you said, so the building, the proposed building is 56 by 44. The outdoor kennel runs, when you were talking about that now that's in that space that I said is another 10 feet outside of the actual building. And then those garage doors are outside of that, right? So now we're talking technically 10 feet outside of that 56 depth. So I'm just,
Okay, because
So
on your
those are the
drawing,
runs, so the building itself is this big,
So-
the runs can go out. in the
outside
direction.
of the actual building
Yeah,
space.
They can go.
Okay.
So when you mentioned the dogs.
so what's
are-
that gonna be then, and that, so it'd be 40, or
So
be 54 by 56?
60, so the full, like, so the pavement that we're talking about would be 66 just on that, for those kennels, 66 wide, and then those garage doors would be out there for that, just. But where you were right, still, the dogs are gonna be inside that 44, and those doors too, we'd be able to shut them inside those, but when you talked about being able to go outside to go to the bathroom or whatnot. I just want to clarify.
And that lean-to with the runs is on the north side of the building?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
No, I appreciate you clarifying that, because I was confused with that on the drawing, because there's a little dashed area. I thought those were the runs within the 44 by 56, so it's good to clarify.
So it's on the outside.
Yep,
Yeah,
so I got 44 by 66. Including the 10-foot lean-to on the north. for the
exactly. That
runs.
includes that lean-to, the kennel runs are under that lean-to.
That's. Anything else? Want you to get in? Or feel safe?
Haven't heard from him. Sent him my bill and he hasn't responded.
Yeah.
Probably didn't hear what's going on.
Maybe you
Oh,
shut his
I-
phone.
Oh.
off, sorry.
Brad's good with it, he said.
Just the operating hours, I mean, we're just really not gonna have, like, I'm not gonna be 8 to 5 at all, even the boarding. I'm gonna set my hours, like, if you're gonna board with me, it's gonna be drop off your dog from, 8 to 10. And then come up and pick up your dog from 4 to 6. It's not gonna be a Monday through Friday. It's not gonna be those
Did we
that
do
wide
business
open.
hours or just quiet hours? We just did quiet hours.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry. I
no,
thought
and that, we had business
It
hours there
wasn't-
too.
Yeah, it was on the
And
top
that-
operating.
But if you wanted to be more restrictive than that, you can do that,
Oh,
but this
okay.
would be in that max. And
Gotcha.
that, so I mean, if you want to say only in between 8 and 10 is when your drop
Yeah,
off
great.
period, you don't have to be open 8 to 5, so, yep.
Oh,
Sorry,
I see
you're-
what you're saying, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
gotcha.
no, this, yeah, oh man, you really got yourself. done.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
okay.
So, in other words, the changes that have been made from the proposed conditions is on number 7, clarifying and that burrowing depth is 8 inches below. Number 9, changing the maximum and that from the 16 and 10 to 30 dogs maximum. Changing the building size from 44 by 56 to 44 by 66, including that 10-foot lean-to on the north. And then no dogs allowed that have caused previous bodily harm. And then the garage doors installed on the end of the runs. So it's actually 20 conditions.
I'm sorry, my husband just corrected me. The runs are on the west, not the north. I said north.
Is that where the lean-to is then too on the west?
The lean-to's on the west
Okay.
for the dogs, yes.
Yes.
Forgive me, I had to step out real quick, but was one of the conditions to tie the land use permit for the residency to the conditional use permit?
Oh, no dogs allowed until
Correct.
they live there.
So they live there because there was concerns about
Somebody
absentee,
has to be there
Yeah.
24/7.
an absentee owner, yeah.
Because we won't be able to issue the conditional use permit to operate and that dog kennel facility until the land use has been done for the house. So, you know,
But a condition, just for condition 21, that if they build this first, if they build a house, they can't have dogs. I mean, how do we write that one?
well, I think it goes back to more number 3, owner and caretaker of dogs must reside on site. And CUP permit shall not be issued
Oh, okay, add it to number
Yeah.
3, sure,
Yeah.
okay, that was the one.
until dwelling.
So they can't build it, and then all of a sudden never build a house.
Yeah,
Dwelling is
So
complete.
number 3 will cover that.
Number 3,
Yep.
yep. So in other words, I'm changing number 3, owner and or caretaker of dogs must reside on site and CUP permit shall not be issued until the dwelling is complete.
Okay. That'll cover it.
So to clarify, we can build this, get this going, build our house. And then once we're living in our house, then we can
Start your
start our business.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's exactly.
That's exactly what, yep.
Perfect.
Yep. So you're basically getting a broad brush opening, and that to do this use. And that as long as you own the property, you're able to start it. It's not like you gotta start it within 2 years. It could be 5 years down the road because it's not gonna expire. And that, what we're talking about, the CUP permit is that's that permit that puts all these conditions into place and allows you to operate it as a boarding facility. So, yep.
Thank you.
I just wanna go back to business hours. I don't know why we're putting business hours on. This is the type of business that it could happen at any time. Are you comfortable with that or not?
I mean, as long as,
This is some of the letters, we're worried about too much traffic and stuff, so.
Well, I mean,
But you're right.
There won't be a lot.
If I go on a trip and I leave my dog at a kennel, if I get home on Sunday afternoon, I want to go get my dog.
Yeah.
So then, there it says it's
even
closed.
Sunday
so,
night.
Yeah,
But I don't think anybody's gonna be sitting there watching for you drive it in. I just think maybe.
I don't think we have a lot of traffic, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that there would be a tremendous amount of traffic or I can't picture it.
no, I can't. It's not like a retail store or something.
Do you think we should take operating hours off or not? That phone's gonna light up over here.
Well, it's kind of at their discretion.
I would think.
I mean, if they're there, they're gonna accept them. If they're gone on vacation themselves, they're not gonna accept, you know what I'm saying? So it is
Yeah,
kind of
they-
at a,
They can just.
You're at the mercy of them.
Because like you called ahead of time.
What about,
You can't drive there, and just drop
It's like dairy
it off.
farming.
They have to call you. They have
right, we have to be
notify you.
there.
Yeah, they can't just show up.
right?
So really, there is no hours, really.
it's up to you guys. Yeah.
Because there isn't really, they have to call ahead and everything.
But now if you're gonna be doing pet grooming and stuff, you could have,
Oh, I see. If they went to dog grooming or something, they
Right.
would. Okay.
You know,
It does
I
give
mean-
us that option. I'm not personally gonna do that, but yeah,
so I mean, if you wanted to specify hours of operation, and that for grooming or open to the public, Well, I don't know, it'd be only for dog grooming.
Yeah.
You know. But they still have to call. You can't just, I can't have a dog in my back seat and try it in there and say, here, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Right, it's still gonna be,
You can strike it. I mean, and that's just something that we normally
That we put in
put
there.
on there. I mean, whether it's a gravel pit or whatever, so.
Sure.
And that, because otherwise, you know, everybody's probably gonna be there at 5 to 6 o'clock on a Sunday night, and then you might have dogs barking and stuff, you know, I mean, I don't know, so.
Or do you put in their owner, hours of operation at the availability of the owner?
Whatever you guys want to make it.
So it's the same.
Well, you know what I mean? It's just kind of
Then you
one of
strike it,
those,
you
because
don't
it
even
has
put-
to be there. They have to be there, so.
Yeah, but I mean, it's by appointment, so it isn't like retail business.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, maybe that's it. Hours of operation by appointment only or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
yeah.
You're
Yeah, but
putting- you're putting restrictions on the permit. You're not operating their business, right? So,
you should probably take that off.
right,
Right.
if you have something that just says that you have to have an appointment with them, it's not restricting them from anything at that point. You're restricting the people who are interacting with the business. That's
Yeah.
not,
Not what we get to do.
that's not
Right.
the purpose.
Okay,
So it isn't
okay.
anything so that we should take the operating hours off.
Well, the operating hours would be a restriction on them though.
Yeah.
And that, so that's the difference is the hours of operations are restriction to them versus them having to call and set up an appointment. You're basically trying to create their business plan for them,
Sure.
you know, so.
So then strike it. Make it easy, we'll strike that line.
Okay. 19 conditions.
No.
Yeah, it's their business, let them have it. I can't see a lot of traffic once you get the dogs. All right.
30 cars a day. Day, pick them up in the morning, take them back.
He's not a groomer.
I'm just saying, that's what it's open right now for, you know, and that, because, I mean, that's something, you know, and that to, I mean, all these conditions are trying to address the what ifs, and I realize that, you know, and that, but right now we got a maximum of 30 dogs. We don't say that they gotta be there for 3 days. We don't say that they gotta be there, you know, or
A month, a week, yeah.
10 full-time peps. Maybe there's money in grooming, you know, I'm gonna groom 30 of them in a day. That's 60 cars a day. So, and I can drop them off at 6 in the morning and I can pick them up at 11 o'clock at night. So,
Yeah, because that's was the traffic thing.
so,
Still say strike it.
okay.
no, God, no.
Well, it's in the application though that they're gonna have a grooming area in that building, so.
Oh, right, to keep, yes, I do
To
want
maintain
to, I do want to
what-
keep them clean, yes, yeah.
I'm giving you the worst case scenario. I don't care. So anyway, so. Just
Brad
trying
didn't
to,
care either. Brad didn't care either. Quick.
that's a policy decision, so it's up to you guys.
I think take it off and if
Mhm.
they have 30 cars coming down, they're gonna get complaints, any complaint and stuff, they lose it. You know, their permit. So I mean, that would be a decision they have to make.
Okay.
Pretty hard. You know, because we have in there, if they don't meet any of these conditions. Any complaints and stuff. they'll lose their permits. That's-
Well, not, it would have to be a violation. It'd have to be a disorderly conduct or public nuisance, which then is gonna come back to, you know, our county public nuisance ordinance or the towns, you know, and that, and so.
So it's covered that way. So, all right.
Okay.
So where we at? We good? Sharon, you good?
Yep, I am.
Brad, you good? Beef, that's it.
Yeah, I'm not getting anything from it, so,
Nothing, okay. He just started his truck until.
yeah.
He just moved
Yeah,
back.
quick.
All right, then, so I will entertain a motion.
I'll second it.
So motion with the, what was it, ended up 20 conditions?
19.
19.
To the members. Okay, thank you.
All those in favor, then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, okay. That will move on.
This is only the rate, not opposed.
Yeah.
I said I'd charge him by the hour and he just hung up, so.
Okay. That sounds good, yeah. We'll move forward.
Thank you.
Okay,
Claire, can you bring up the reduced private road setback text? Coming through in color. All right. So this is going on to the next agenda item there. And this is, we heard some feedback from Chairman O'Connell and Supervisor Rhodey about the private road setback provisions and that I proposed at the public hearing on February 15th for the shoreline and comprehensive ordinance amendments. I had been talking with Supervisor Wook, and we had a couple of instances on Hickory Point Lane, which is kind of a unique animal. And that, well, it's not really that unique, but a portion of the road is a town road and then it goes to private road after that. They had received one, and we knew of another one, and that was going to be going to them for that road for people wanting to build structures closer to the center of the private road. The town of Lincoln had the position, you know, and that they weren't going to take an act on that reduced road setback approval because they didn't feel like there was anything to gain for the town. I'm not trying to put words in the town's mouth, but basically anything that the town did by doing that could only come back and harm the town in the future if they were, you know, proposed with taking over that road, or if there was a liability, somebody going off the road and hitting that building, you know, that there was no gain for the town. So I created the text here, and that the first section is in the comprehensive portion of the ordinance, where we simply struck the ability for a town to approve a reduced private road setback. And then down in 420301 E, a little bit clearer. And that we took and struck that the setback from any private road can be reduced by the town as well in that one. So with those changes, what would happen is if somebody wanted a reduced private road setback, they would have to go to the Board of Adjustment here at the county level, similar to what they do, and that with our state highways or even counties. And so anyway, that's why it was proposed. The 35-foot setback, the only logic that I can have behind that is that a normal town road, whether it's platted or an assumed road right of way, is 33 feet from the center of the road on each side. So that's a 66-foot right of way. The idea is a lot of people forget their eaves on their building, which is a common 2-foot eave. So the 33 plus the 2-foot eave is a 35 feet from center line for the building. And I believe the setback has been set at that since the 70s. I don't think it's changed since then, when the county originally had county zoning ordinances, because that was used as a tool for future land use development and future roads if they were built up to road specs, and that for a municipality to take them over. So I believe that's the reasoning on it. You guys suggested approval to the county board after the public hearing on the 15th. If you wanted to change that approval motion, you would need to open it back up to take and be able to reconsider the amendments to 4214 and 42301. And then you would make a motion differently if you want. So
Okay,
That's my thoughts on it.
let's, yep, start out.
The first thing I'll say is, one, I don't mean to offend anybody, but also Malia said if there's a vote, I have to tell, meant I own an access road. But what I'm talking about is not the 66-foot road where you have 35 feet setback. It's the 30-foot access road that's private. And then if you have 35 feet, you've gone 20 feet over the property line. And that just seems quite excessive to me. And what about rear yard set, or your rear property setback? It says 10 feet. Where does that come in?
Well, so it's more restrictive. So typically the road setback is going to be more restrictive than a rear lot line setback. So if the town or the Board of Adjustment approves a reduced road setback, then that trumps that rear lot line setback. So
And I understand that. I'm just saying, why do we need to go beyond that 10 feet to make it 20 feet? I just believe we're being way too restrictive.
again, it goes back to the future development needs of the county and being able to provide emergency services, and that to be able to get a cement truck, to be able to get a trailer with rafters on them, you know, and that up the property. It comes back to somebody parking alongside the private drive because it's their land, right? And that, so if they park right alongside the private drive and they're halfway out into the road, people have to go around to get around. You know, that if you've got garage doors facing the private drive, you know, and that my pickup truck, I think is 21 feet long, 4-door short box. You know, and that, so then you have vehicles hanging out into that access easement, and that to do it. So that's kind of where it's come from. And whether it's a 20-foot wide road today, or a 30-foot wide road, or a 66-foot easement, or a 66-foot platted road, and that at whatever point, if those property owners petition their town to take over that road, and if they build it up to town road specs, and that the state and the town can still require that 66-foot easement. So it's not like, and that a 30-foot easement or a 30-foot platted roadway today, and that if it ever becomes a town road, the town can still assume a greater easement width than what is there right now. Of course, all the property owners would have to agree to that. But if they're lobbying the town to take over their road so they don't have to go out and plow it anymore, especially after a year like this year, you know, they're probably willing to take and give them that easement, you know, to be able to do their road maintenance. So
Back to my thinking. I know you want to go with what ifs, but it's never going to happen on a 30-foot road. And in the town of Bone Lake, and I'll just use examples I know, in order for them to take over any private road, which we have 66-foot road in a cul-de-sac, it has to be paved. Well, nobody's going to pay to have it. I talked to Bob about it because he's in McKinley, and I don't know what McKinley does, but you're never going to get 6 people to decide to pave the road with the cost. But anyway, that's a what if. Again, I just think we're being too restrictive on a 30-foot.
I'd be careful with the what ifs, because 196th Street and going up on the west side of Deer Lake, Sharon can probably vouch for this. There's only, well, there's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 houses there. And with a cul-de-sac on the end, and they just paved it all. And that, so.
I understand, because there's one on Bone Lake that fellow paved all of his access road. And then the other property owners were upset because people were driving too fast. They wanted it gravel. But I mean, I'm just saying, on a 30-foot and you've got a 10-foot setback, you've got 25 feet, so you really have 50 feet. I mean, it just seems like it's covered. I just would like.
That's up to you. I'm not trying to be argumentative at all, so, you know.
Yeah. See, my idea then was, okay, you got a 30-foot road. They might not take it over, but the first person to take it over, first municipality, would be the town. Would take it over, not the county.
The county.
So I don't know, and that's why I brought this thing to read. I don't know if Joe read this, that they can't dedicate their powers to us. I read this in a different way, but so I thought the town would have that to say the setback then. You know, that's what we did before on some of this, so the BOA didn't get named,
Right.
like go to the town says, okay, you can do it. If you get a letter from the town that says you can do it, we let it go. So I was thinking that way yet, to leave it like we have it now. Just because most of these roads, the town is gonna say no. But if it ever did happen to get taken over, it would be by the town. So they should be the ones that say, okay, we'll let you go 10 feet from it, because we'll never take it anyway, we don't care. That's the way I look at it, Jay, that you can't, because you would be first to take it,
I know exactly what you're saying.
because the county is not gonna take over and build that road. Most of the towns aren't,
Absolutely right.
and that's why I thought they could come to the town planning and say, okay, we'll go drive it, look, we can still get a fire truck down it, you can be 10 feet.
My opinion as a town, and speaking for the rest of the town board, we've discussed this at a meeting. We don't care what they do with their property. They can do whatever.
So then you
they-
can sign off.
They own that property. They know our regulations. If they're going to petition us in any manner to take over that road, we used to plow that until our trucks were losing mirrors and all kinds
Yeah.
of things. And so we had to abandon that idea, and they had to get private.
People to
maintenance.
do it, yeah.
And so, and it's definitely private property. We
Right.
have, I don't know what it's like me coming up to you in your driveway and say, well, move your driveway over 50 feet, I don't like where it is. Well, I can't do
Cut the
that.
trees or trim the trees in their front yard, that's,
We have no position on where somebody puts a building on their private property. If they build it in the middle of the road, it's up to him and the neighbors and the ones that have to get down the road. And like Doug's talking about, if for a chance they do petition us in the future, I'm not gonna be on record to say it's okay to infringe on the 66-foot wide easement that's necessary for us to take over the road by ordinance. We do that. I mean, I can't violate the ordinance before it's even requested. I mean, there'd be a violation of my authority.
well, if the 66 isn't there, if it's only a 30-foot platted road with lots on both sides, that's all that's there.
That's it.
That's it.
They can expand it.
They can try or take
Well,
houses down and trees, yeah.
It used to be feasible or
Yeah.
possible, but cost wise, it's
It's
not
not,
logical.
it's not, well, in most of the areas you
Talking
can't.
Thousands and thousands of dollars.
Well, I'm just thinking too, in a,
So when you're
if it's
considering,
only a 14-foot road,
all I'm
where's
telling
the
you is when
center?
you're considering this,
yeah.
Lincoln is not gonna act on it, period. In my estimation. Period. They can come to us for whatever they wish, but we're not gonna
So
act
then it would just be a back property line, they'd have to be the 10 feet.
up to the,
No,
well,
and then they would fall underneath the 35-foot road setback and that, in the ordinance, because the town's not gonna approve the reduced setback.
Oh, okay. I
So
see
that's
what
kind of
you're
what we got into this
Oh.
last time, and that is people, their project was delayed because we sent them to the town and now they're gonna have to go through the BOA. And, so I mean, that's what it is. So I've already talked with Jay and the town and that about just putting something in writing for us. Because then as people come into our office, we'll just say, hey, Town of Lincoln says right here that they're not gonna act on any private road setbacks. So that they don't waste that time by trying to vet that
Oh,
town
sure.
process, because Jay is cheap and that when he goes to see Jay, he doesn't charge him anything, and that, but when they go to see the BOA, it's $750,
Sure.
so
That's what we're trying to.
they're
get away
definitely
from.
gonna want to keep going to that town route, and that if they can, because it's free. So.
Okay,
not our only application.
no,
Yeah.
so I'm just thinking, I'm thinking,
So this talks about the planning of subdivisions, and we don't have the power to say, hey, you have to put a road in. We can't tell them you have to put a road in. We
Restore.
can't tell them where to put a road. We can't do those sorts of things. What it doesn't say is that we can't restrict based upon where roads are, where you can put out buildings, where you can build expansions on your home, et cetera. So this opinion doesn't touch on what I think what you're talking about in this ordinance specifically relates to.
okay,
That's not to say,
Well, see,
I'm not
did you see what I
opining.
highlighted? That
yep,
the authority to condition plat approval upon constructing public improvements, what that would be, is reserved only for towns, villages, and cities.
right. So
Not the
again,
county.
this opinion is talking
So-
about plat approvals as opposed to,
Chapter 236, and
Yeah.
that, so that memo is relating to chapter 236 of the statute regarding subdivisions. And that versus the zoning authority regarding setbacks and stuff like that, whether it's shoreland or not, would be 5969 would be the statute for our zoning stuff,
so
so.
we can't say to someone who's building a subdivision, you have to put a road in here, or you have to put in a road at all.
The town has to
The
do
town
that.
has to do that.
Okay.
What
Yeah.
we can do is say, there is a road here, you can't build in this area. Right now, what Jason's saying is our shoreline ordinance says that we're telling the town, hey, if you want to give a variance, that's your deal. What his proposal was that the town retake that, goes to the Board of Adjustment. That is not something that's addressed in this legal memorandum. Again, I'm not opining on whether or not that's legal, and I wouldn't say that I should in an open session. If you want to talk about it in closed session, I don't have an answer. I'm not saying Jason's wrong. I haven't looked into it. I'm just saying that this particular document does not address that issue. So don't think that because this says we can't do.
They
anything
can't
related-
delegate it. They can't delegate his powers. I know that.
And
That's what I'm reading.
And that applies outside of the plat.
Of the
rules.
plat rules.
They can't delegate their authority, their statutory authority to us. That's generally true. Now, if it's something that we said, hey, town, you make this decision, and they're saying, no, we're not gonna make that decision, that's not a statute, it's us just saying,
Yeah.
you do it, then setting it back, so.
Okay,
Anyway,
okay.
Consider it a long mutual driveway.
And there's setbacks from them.
Right.
That's why I'm saying if it's considered a property line, but like we're saying.
Yeah.
I just don't like the 35 feet from a center line because we don't know where the center lines are in some of these.
There is no center line.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, so it should say property line.
It's a driveway, isn't it?
Yeah. So it should say, like, I think I asked Jason if we put like an easement line.
Defined as something that is used by more than one
Person.
property, whereas a driveway is.
Yeah, I
Considered
one.
one.
And that's an important distinction for a lot of different reasons, but. I just
Okay,
wanted to
sure, okay.
Throw that out.
But they all have a lot line. I mean, a private drive wouldn't have a lot line necessarily, but a private road
So here's.
still have an easement line. How did we?
Here's, I mean, this is, really wide. And that, I mean, to
That's-
try to write that ordinance provision, because your standard town road. And that has a lot of the time, the lot line's the middle of the road.
Yeah.
And then we've got instances where there's actually a platted roadway, a 35 or 66 or 40 foot, I mean, I've seen them all. And then as far as like an easement, and that the lot line might be over on the other side of the road, which is an easement coming through. So now if you have a setback to that, I mean, now you could be behind it, I mean, there is not an easy way to write it, so.
Well, we're working on that one on Mount Lake where the road's 30 feet. It's platted through a wetland, but the road's over here.
And so.
Easement over here.
And so here's my lot, and I've got a road that transects the lot just like that. Well, you can't even just do a lot line setback, because what about these lot lines where the road continues on, Or like I said, if the road's there, here's the rear lot line, or it might be in the center, or it might be a platted roadway where it is 20 feet off or 33 feet off the center.
Excuse me, but
Yep.
in those examples, which are true, I'm not questioning they aren't. What I'm saying is, can't you take out the 35 feet and just use the 10-foot setback, rear setback?
And that's where it comes down to the BOA, because they're seeking an exception in that to the ordinance, because, and that unfortunately, we've got cases in that where the platted road is maybe going over here and our road is zigzagging through the tops of the hills and stuff over here, because when they platted it, they really didn't know where that road was because it wasn't in existence. So now we've got cases where the road might not even be in the platted roadway, Sherrard's Resort, for example. And then if we got a setback, this guy here, and that from the center of the road, and that he's gonna be way far off. So you could actually be more restrictive by putting on some of those rear lot line setbacks in those cases versus a 35-foot setback from the center line might allow them to move right up to that lot line.
I didn't understand that one. Because
that-
you
so-
You should have a map like the one I had. I didn't think I brought it, that needles, I mean, the road. They surveyed it, which is 1924. But they have two lots like this. And it ends here, the road goes across their lots like this. So that would be their lot lines. Well, this is a wetland. So the actual road goes up here and around and then catches.
So here's,
So if we did lot lines, they could be 10 feet from here, they could be in the water.
Well, that's true, but Jason would set up that, when he pulls up that lot, he has to have a rear somewhere.
so well, like right here. So here's the center line of the platted, or here's the center line of the traveled road, the private road. And here's where it was platted. But they found out that when they came through, they were just trying to ram the plat through. And then they put it here because that made the lots the way they wanted them or whatever along the lake. You know, and maybe that's 37 feet to that lot line there. If we do a 10-foot setback, and that would be 47 feet in that case. And that versus if we have a 35-foot, we're not gonna allow them to build out into this platted roadway, but they could build right up to the lot line. You know, so there's all kinds of cases like that. And I know you think I'm probably just trying to pick out an abnormally and that, but that's exactly why when we look at our town road provisions, which we can bring up. Claire, can you bring up the Word document? No, here, sorry. I said Word in my PDF. Go ahead, scroll down just a little bit. So right here is a setback from any town road, public street or highway shall be 63 feet from the center line of the road. So if we've only got a 3-rod road, 49.5 feet, then 49.5 feet would be what, 24.5 feet would be the right of way on each side of the road. But 63 feet from the center line is gonna put them back 63 feet. Or 30 feet from the right of way, whichever is greater. So if we've got 24.5 feet of road right of way on each side, plus our 30 feet, we're at 54.5 feet. So that provision would apply then, but 63 is gonna be greater, so that's where they would have to build. Now, if we flip that the other way and say that the road is not built within the platted roadway, kind of like my drawing that I just had there, same exact case. And that 30 feet from the right of way may put them closer to the road, but 63 feet from the traveled center line might be farther back. So it happens a lot. I mean, we end up using that provision a lot, and it all comes down to these 3 words here, whichever is greater. So if you have a smaller right of way, the 30-foot setback from the right of way is gonna be in that a lot less restrictive. But if you have a bigger right of way, and that the center line. So is gonna be less restrictive. So in other words, if I got a state road, we have the same provision. In fact, I think it's
Right up above.
or right up here,
100.
whichever is greater. Well, Highway 8, it might be 60 feet at one spot. So then 50 feet from that right away, 110 feet. Perfect, works out. But now when you get to a roundabout and they got 100 foot of right away, and that our setback is gonna go 50 feet from the right of way, and so now we're 150, much more than the 110. Unfortunately, a lot of it, and that was because a lot of our plating was done before we had land use regulations and subdivisions and that for orderly land use development. It was done in the 20s and 30s around our lakes. And we're kind of stuck with what we've got, but really in that, back before we had the town approval process, we didn't have a ton of these going to the BOA. And the benefit by sending them to the BOA is that the BOA can look at each situation. They can dive into the right of way. They can dive into where the road is located versus where it was platted. And they can also condition the approval so that the garage doors are maybe towards the lake or towards the house on the back side of the garage, or maybe it'd be a side entrance, and that's so that they're not encroaching out into the road with their boat trailer or whatever they have parked there. So.
It's a tough one, yeah.
But it's strictly a matter of privacy. I'm not trying to influence either way. And that Jay had brought it up and that before the public hearing, and I told him I'd draft the text and present it to you guys. So that's why it's here.
Because we try
So,
to just reduce the Board of Adjustment ones because it's. How many of these have came up then, I guess? I mean, if we get a lot come up, that's when you have to write an ordinance to not have them go to the BOA for everything. That's kind of how an ordinance is put into place. You know, say if you got 15 of these this year, we should rewrite the ordinance to make it right, you know. Because I mean, if you have 15, 20 of the, all the, it was like transit rooming houses, you just write the ordinance and make it affordable.
Counting them.
Instead of going through the BOA for every one. You know, that's what we're gonna look at, I think. I mean, how many, Jason, do you think we had for this?
I'd be guessing, well, for the BOA, we haven't had any go to the BOA since the town approval has been in there, except for the one that we're working on
So
now.
weren't we fighting with Lincoln?
And that, well, I think there's a lot of other towns in that
I
that
think
feel
so.
similar, you know, and that,
I know
so,
there is.
you know.
But I mean, if we leave it the way it is, it's only be Lincoln with the one sending them to us.
Well, I think in that'd probably be contagious, so anyway, I think you
Yeah.
can see other towns jumping on, but that's just my speculation,
But I'm
so.
thinking if the towns could say it either way, like Clam Falls and that, you know, are legal from Clam, he likes, he has that control.
We get a lot of blowback in our
Oh, I'm sure.
office because then we're giving misleading information because we're telling them to go to the town and now that delayed the process. And then now they still gotta go back and get on the BOA. And when you got a 3 to 4 month building window,
Yeah. Well, we should find out which towns, yes or no, to send to them. If the towns, if like Lincoln, if they come to Lincoln and Lincoln just says, no, we're not gonna deal with it. You have to go to the BOA. The other towns so far
you know,
would say yes or no to us. So do we leave it alone?
What about the towns like Jason, St. Croix Falls town, they have their own town zoning. How would this change that?
well, it provides another burden and that, either way, I guess, and that,
This wouldn't
because it
apply.
would be going to the BOA or that, so
This wouldn't apply to St. Croix Falls, would it?
we would still be checking setbacks, yep. So it's because,
Don't they have their own
and
zoning?
that, well, they have a use-based zoning. and that,
Driveways and
Oh, okay.
better roads, no
So,
setbacks, we still do.
Still do the setbacks, okay.
you know, the, one of the main advantages of having county zoning, if you're a town, is that if you're a contractor and you're working in a town and that you have consistent messaging and that
Yeah.
throughout your county and throughout your town. And so that's where, you know, that a good ordinance also tries to remove that ambiguity and try to clarify it and that so that everybody is treated the same. So it's not a question of, well, let's go see if the town will do it. And if they don't, we're gonna go to the BOA and it still might be denied. You know, at least they have clear direction on the process. So
Yeah.
either way, and that whether it's left as is or whether it's kept with the changes as is, you know, what would try to avoid is us sending out a letter to each town or calling up each town sheriff saying, hey, do you guys want to deal with private road setbacks or not? I mean, I guess that the majority of them are gonna say no.
Yeah.
That we have enough of our own business to take care of. We don't need to do your job and that too. And so that's pretty much the response that I would expect. And what about if 2 or 3 towns do, then we gotta take and, tell those contractors, oh, no, you don't have to apply for a variance. You gotta go through the town now. It's just gonna be kind of like what we ran into with Lincoln here, with that inconsistency and.
So we should do all or none. Is what we're saying, to make it consistent, okay. Which makes sense, then, too, I guess.
Yeah.
So if we do it, then we would leave this as is. That we're sending on.
You can leave it as is or change it. Yeah, that's a matter of policy, so.
What is Brad providing any comments?
He's no longer on, Sharon.
He's no longer on.
He's on the road.
Oh, he isn't. Okay. Okay.
So if you think he's gonna have a lot, we can always take it out and discuss it more.
He had concerns.
He did have
Private
concerns.
roads,
Yeah, he did.
So, like he said, we could take just this portion out. And chew it up for another 2 weeks and then come back.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
I mean, we can do that. I mean, that's what Jason said, or kind of, because we want these other ones to keep.
It
moving
won't,
forward.
it won't meet the county board packet and that to be on the 15th meeting.
No, it'll be for our meeting.
But then we'll have to go through the whole amendment process again with filing a new petition and doing another public hearing because it'll be already past the county board, unless you push the ordinances back and that to the April county board
We don't
meeting.
wanna push it back anymore. We got it on there. I
So,
thought if we just took this amendment out, we could add it later.
well, you'd have to add it next time we open up the ordinances for amendment.
A year from now.
Year from now, yeah.
A year from now.
That's what I'd do.
Push it to the amendment season,
push it
starting
out
in
to the next
November
Amendment season,
to November.
and work through it, and then we'll just stay with the way we're going with it now.
That would be the
help?
path of, yeah, just to keep all these new amendments to
Yeah,
our
keep the new ones
ordinances
going, yeah.
on the March County Board. Yeah, we could punt it until amendment season, which starts in November. I'll make note of that.
So then if we do that, by taking this section out, what does it do for this year for you guys? I mean, they would come to you, all of them.
We're gonna have the hodgepodge mess.
We're gonna have a hodgepodge for this year.
Because I mean, like I said, I'm gonna want something from Lincoln, but I don't want to send people and put them on their planning commission agenda. Only to have the planning commission maybe act or not, then to go to the town board and not act, and that's a 2-month process that you just could have.
So it's
spent.
basically status quo until we get written
We know
documentation
right
from
now
Lincoln.
won't do it, so if anybody asks, I mean, and we should.
Well, and I think we know that a lot of towns won't do it, I mean, I know when we did addressing up in the town of Lorraine, and I'm not gonna speak for Roger Owens and that, but I mean, they didn't want to do nothing on private road drive, and that, I mean, they didn't even want to put up the fire number signs out there. So
So Jason, in the interim, is there a way that you can simplify your explanation of what you're doing and email that to the towns and have them give
Send all
input
this
whether
to-
they're in or they're out?
but that's gonna create that hodgepodge or inconsistency throughout the county, just so you guys know it, because now any contractor out there is not gonna know, well, do I have to go to the town on this one or not,
Yeah.
so.
Because I think that we would, I mean, the town of Clayton would probably be in the same boat as what Jay is. I mean,
I
Well,
think
I've got another
75%
one
of them.
that has a definite different reason not to approve something like this. Totally different reason. And it's the same issue. It's a private road, goes down to the lake and, all the cabins on it, they get the fighting. Now they want us to step in. We can't, it's totally
Yeah,
different
exactly.
issue.
See, that's where you make them almost like a home association. If there's 10 homes on that private road, you all have a 10th ownership, be an association, deal
Well,
with it.
but
And you guys have done that.
Won't do it.
Well, You guys have done that through our subdivision ordinance and that was one of the things in that everybody has a shared common interest in those platted roadways now. But what we're dealing with is these old ones,
The old ones
you
don't
know,
have that.
and I mean, some of it comes back to what you guys want to see too and what people want to buy, you know, and that not every lot, I tell people this every day, and I'm like, I don't mean to be negative. Not every lot is suitable for a 60 by 120 pole shed,
Yeah.
you know, or
Yeah.
not every lot is suitable for a 15-bedroom house.
Right.
And that now if you've got a property that you can meet your setbacks and stuff, sure, go ahead, build it. You know, we're not anti-development. And that, but if you buy a lot and now you're building a new building and that doesn't meet the setbacks, you know, one could look at it as maybe you're exceeding the carrying capacity of that lot.
It's all about the development pressures. So you have to invite you to think about long-term.
Well, and they have to buy 2 lots and tear both houses down to fit their house in.
Right.
I mean, we're doing that right now. on
You know,
3 different
and
lots.
by going to the BOA, and I mean, the towns could do this, but they wouldn't really have any basis or grounds to stand on for doing it. By going to the BOA can look at all the other factors too, soil and erosion control. And that is it a steep slope and that's gonna prevent erosion, you know, and that, or cause erosion, and that is it something that's gonna create more of a direct runoff into the lake. And that, because then the BOA can condition on all of that for the runoff and stuff. But I don't know, I would guess that you'd probably have 10 or less of these a year going to the BOA, but right now our BOA, I mean, they meet 5-6 times a year probably.
No.
Every other month is
Every other
all
month.
for 2 applications, where it used to be that they meet once to 2 times a month for 4 applications.
Right.
So there's been a dramatic decrease. So as far as workload going to the BOA, I'm not too concerned. In fact, it'd be nice to kind of get them together a little bit more often, but keep them trained up a little bit better, but.
So now, let's look at it the opposite way. What if we leave this in? And then test it this year and see if we have to change it next year?
And that, so if you leave it,
That would make them all come to you then.
that would make them all come to us and we would defer them and that to the towns. And that unless the town submits something in writing to us, which I could see towns jumping on that boat.
With the new one, if we leave this amendment in there.
And that would come to us and we would do a BOA.
BOA and go that.
It
way.
would take it out of the town.
We could test it for a year this way. And then have that on one of our deals to see how much.
Could definitely provide you with a report even after a year and see how many have went.
Try
to
it
it.
for a year and then. Instead of taking it off, let's leave it in and see if it works. If there isn't very many, I guess we don't have to deal with it. as much.
And the BOA might grant something a lot less. I mean, if you guys had a 10-foot
Yeah.
rear lot line setback, they might grant something to be 2 feet, you know, I
Yeah,
mean, and
true.
that if it's, you know, the road's way over, I mean, it might be less restrictive in some
Sure.
cases. Or those ones maybe would have required the variance anyway, because if the town approved and that, and they still are within that rear lot line, you know, I mean, so it's tough to know.
So maybe we should try it. And if it's a bigger mess, then next year we'll change it back. Dig into it more when we start doing ordinances.
Doug, you had questions before. What do you think of that? Leaving it in?
Restaurant, yeah,
One of them,
it is, it's right.
It's complicated. It's a case-by-case issue.
And if it gets to be a lot of them, that's when you're gonna have to sit down and actually write one. You know, and then better. I mean, we got 20 of these, we should write something so we're not.
You just let me know what you write in yours. I'm giving you the authority.
So maybe by consensus, we'll leave it alone. And if Brad gets mad, I guess he will, it's one of those deals we'll test for a year. and
It's
we'll
all
go from
about
there.
Brad.
Well, we got Clem Lake Legal.
It's all about
Joe
Brad.
left, so we got Clem Lake Legal. I think he would be all right. with it. Let's try it. Building season, and then if it is that big of a mess, then we better dig into it better. We haven't tried it yet, so we might as well try it once.
I guess I don't know.
Well, this is actually reverting it back to what it was before,
Yeah.
you know, so it was like
But
that.
before when? When,
Uh,
what do you mean before?
That 2019 timeframe.
Yeah.
So this is
Okay,
new rule to allow a town to approve reduced town road or private road setback It actually came from the BOA on the town road stuff, but the
Yeah.
BOA did not suggest a private road
didn't.
stuff, just because they'd been seeing a lot and they'd been taking the input of the town into great consideration when approving or denying. And so that's where it came about. And then through the process, private roads were included. And that's why I don't think the town, or the BOA is gonna have any problem with taking back private roads. So anyway.
Okay.
I said, if there isn't a lot, I don't think. There's so many private roads, but the lots of.
Well, I guess, yeah, well, that opens up my comment is you're talking about private roads that were done in the past, because when you survey, a lot of times the property lines run around the pond.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
It really runs through the pond.
Yeah.
Because they did that to help the neighbor so he could fence around. it.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's all kinds of examples. They're resurveying things up on Anderson's sugar bush. One gained and one lost.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying, since these minor and major developments were created, and you have an actual plat. So it's like, we can look to the past and do it, but we can look to the future of what was done, and it can't cause any problem.
Any more problems, yeah.
I just want to get that, get that out.
See, the plat I'm working on with them is one's from 1924 to 1916. And they're through the middle of lots. They go, we went to walk the one, there's a garage
Yeah,
right there in the middle of the
understand.
platted road, and I'm going, oh, this is gonna be fun.
That's a prime example.
And there's 3 lots, they put a road right through one guy's 3 lots.
I mean, we can probably write an ordinance for it, but it's gonna be almost a page of text, and that, I
That's
mean,
it.
it's gonna be sitting down thinking about it, I mean.
Well, for ordinance season, then why don't we just leave this, go to the board as is?
And then we'll just revisit that next year. We'll
and
put that on
revisit
our
this?
list and
I mean,
that
it
to
just will
revisit.
look in how much troubles we've had or not had with it.
Okay.
We'll do that.
That would be something, so. I mean, if we have a lot of troubles with it, we change it. Yes. Otherwise, our ordinance season is gonna be year round. We're trying to cut that down here.
So did we just agree to keep it?
I think by consensus to leave it in there for now, for this year's buildings.
Okay.
Because we don't want to hold up all the other ones. I mean, they're all on this month
Yeah, yeah.
for the building season.
Everyone except the renewable energy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a
Okay.
which is a,
Now I'm playing, what if we had a full committee instead of just 4 of us voting? I would vote. But none of it.
I didn't even vote. I just left it as
You're-
a
it's
consensus.
So
I would have too, because Doug had the same questions, and that's why I looked at this, that they can't give that power. I still think they can't give that. If you read that later, I just thought. Yeah, it's gonna make a big mess. Let's do the task. Damn Lincoln getting lazy on us. That's all it was.
I dealt with one on Vincent Lake and between the town and Lake Association. And it was over a shed to keep all of their tools in. It was on the lake to get the weeds out.
Oh, sure.
And the town board didn't like the Lake Association, so they didn't want to deal with it. And it went back and forth with that until they finally turned the shed, the door this way, then they would do it.
Then they let you do it.
Yeah.
Just so you have.
I mean, it's just, some of these things are something.
Yep.
Jay deals with them.
That's a
all the
town
time.
road though, too.
Yeah.
It was a boat landing road.
That's a town road.
Yeah.
And
I
that,
know.
because it's,
I know it is.
and the road actually going down to Vincent Lake for the boat landing is a
Yep.
66-foot platted roadway. And, yeah,
I mean, it was,
I remember
that one got a
that
little bit
too.
more in depth though, too, because that was on town property,
Yeah.
that, or in that platted right away. So, but yeah.
well, it
I remember
wasn't on
that.
town property. It actually was on the neighbor's property. You let them do it. But it was, the setback was too small.
Yeah.
That's where the road comes right down the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I recall that too. I remember that.
Okay. Now we lost Joe. How are we gonna do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Talk to Joe, since Corporation Counsel's not here, he's recommending not to have closed session. So we can either punt it to the next meeting,
Okay,
or I was actually gonna talk a little bit about the topic as part of subject matter for the next agenda, which is number 9.
okay, so if we don't have the closed on that, did they not have it? They were not ready for that?
He had a court to attend, so that's why,
Get court, oh,
yeah. So,
but did he have something prepared? He said he was kind of ready.
yeah, just from one conversation I had with him a couple weeks ago, a week ago, maybe, he was looking at case law.
Okay,
But I have a question for you all regarding the next agenda that could kind of expedite all this. So,
and this one's gonna push that's why I said our ordinance stuff out a little later than we like, but okay.
well,
This is
that was my question, yeah.
Okay. All right,
Kim, if you don't mind.
so we're gonna not have a close, okay.
No, not at this meeting, but that raises the question for the next agenda, which is whether or not to bring back ordinance 1023 to either the March 15th agenda, or if you want to move this to April or May.
How full is this next meeting gonna be?
It's pretty full, and I think you can read between the lines if we postpone
Yes.
the adoption of this ordinance. But yeah, if, just real quick to go through the March 15th agenda, it is pretty extensive. I'll have a pretty comprehensive update on what we've heard from the municipalities in regards to the feasibility study, yeah.
Okay,
We've had some really good dialogue, like I mentioned earlier, with the city of St. Croix Falls, Milltown and Lewis, and we'll have,
you skipped Centuria, how come?
we haven't been able to get a hold of him. We were gonna meet yesterday, it's a long story, but our plan is to visit with,
He'd have been flipping out.
well, Centuria, Luck and Frederick. We're going to meet with them before the 8th. So I will have products of those conversations for you. They're really important.
Oh, yeah.
As well as, some of these position statements we've been getting. So there's that. Then we have our forester coming. He has his annual report. Of course, you have to adopt or make an motion for his 15-year forest management plan. We do that annually. And then he has, there's a habitat conservation plan. County foresters throughout the state are asked to enroll into it. It's regarding an endangered species, the long-eared bat. So there's some protection measures that we have to, or you could consider adopting for protecting that endangered species.
What do you want, just the short-eared ones?
No,
Oh, okay.
none. Open bat
They eat a lot
season.
of, they eat a lot of mosquitoes.
They're pollinators, they're important to our ecosystem, but. And then Jason's got the public hearing for, this will take some time for a CUP extending the rental season of a tourist rooming house. Perhaps you've seen that application already.
The newest one that came out,
Yep.
they want it year round.
Yep, so that they want to go beyond the May to
180 days.
September, yep. So as we remember the one we got earlier, late last year, that was time consuming.
Yes.
Penciled in is the review of that ordinance, 1023, the renewable energy ordinance. We could push that into April or May.
Just as long as you're on that, Bob, not to interrupt in that, but I did talk to Lisa McMahon too, and she had some comments and changes and that on the emergency services side of it.
Oh,
And that
okay,
with,
sure.
and that
Batteries.
particularly the stray voltage, and then voltage around pipelines. And then she said, we talk about emergency management plans and emergency training and stuff. And that, but to actually define what is an emergency, and stuff. So she had a few changes like that. And then, fire, and that, or, with the battery storage component, which you guys had talked about at the public hearing. And that defining that. So those changes I've already got in there. I haven't got Lisa's concerns in there yet. And that, but there is some proposed changes that she would like to see as well.
So we should push that till the April one then, to get.
At the earliest, or even into May.
I mean, this is an all new one. I mean, if we. It isn't gonna affect the building season per se. This one, it's only one that's already started so far, isn't it? And then get our definition of whatever our other stuff. Okay.
So there's still some work to be done on that ordinance. So, so what do you think, Chairman O'Connell? Maybe push that into April?
I think so.
Because another,
These other ones are gonna be pretty busy. I mean.
yeah, we have another one. Yeah, we still have other things too to talk about next meeting, including, you had asked for a compliance update.
Yep.
So we have that list of high priority, medium, and I'd really like to share that with you.
Dealt with, yeah.
Thank you for that. And then I think I mentioned we visited with the town of Sterling about a number of different things, adopting county zoning authority, providing assistance on their comprehensive land use plan. They need assistance. It's not surprising. As well as the ATV intensive park. That artery between Sterling Loop to the intensive park is gonna have to go through town land. We just built the Jack Pine 19-mile. We punched that trail in earlier last year.
Yep.
Roughly half of that trail goes through town lots. It'd be a good practice, and I brought this up with the chairman at their board meeting, to develop an MOU, memorandum of understanding, between the county and the town of Sterling in regards to access. So we can continue accessing
To keep.
the trails, the artery, the Jack Pine Loop. And in return,
Pedestrian trails cross it also.
yes, sir, it's a
So I
very good
mean,
point.
So we better make sure we have both.
And in return, we promise to maintain and operate those trails. So they really are receptive to that. I'm surprised we don't have one yet or have one in the past.
Oh, okay.
So Brent and I are working on drafting one. There is a process through the county. We got to go through contract approval form, but
Sure.
I would like, and of course,
Don't forget
MOUs go to general government, correct? Pretty confident in that.
if there's money involved or not.
Yeah.
MOUs, I think all agreements go through general government.
Yeah. I think we can make one. I mean, get it started. I mean,
Right.
and approve it, whatever, to form, and then, but it goes to general government.
Right, so we'd like
Who
to,
looks them all over, and then
yeah,
the executive committee looks
Yeah,
up
some go to the executive committee. So if it's not financial, it may go to the executive.
to the executive, looks at some
regardless, this committee be best positioned to help vet
first, yes.
the MOU. So
Correct.
whatever Brent and I come up with, and we're using a template, we'd have a recent template that Malia created. We'll bring,
Do we have
To
any
the
other
community.
trails there? We don't have a bicycle trail or anything else, the equestrian and ATV, UTV. Is there a snowmobile trail too?
we have that MOU.
We do have an MOU with the snowmobile.
Oh,
trail?
yeah, that
Okay,
gets updated annually. Mo has that, so.
okay. So that would almost be your blueprint to do the other ones, wouldn't it?
We have one, a new template that we use for the Friends of the Gandy that we're using for the one for Town of Sterling.
Okay,
It's a nice template. So I'd like to bring that to your attention and have some discussion and maybe a recommendation to forward on to either executive or general government at the next meeting as well.
yeah, we'll find out where it has to go to.
And then,
That doesn't need full board, I don't think, an MOU, does it?
No.
No.
and then I have another emerging topic. This might belong in closed session. But the DNR is interested in a 40-acre lot that we own in the town of Lorraine. And I'd recommend that go in closed session as well. It's a long story. And then with Act 216 still out there, I don't know how to we're gonna proceed from there, so. So we'll probably have a closed session as well. So Chairman O'Connell, that's a pretty
full.
full agenda, yeah. So punting the renewable energy ordinance makes sense.
I think so, because that could get, yeah, there's some, with those additions and all that, we have to go sit and go through it again. Okay.
Beyond that, I mean,
What else do we have on our
work plan, that's mostly Brent's work, our forester.
Yep.
So adhering to the work plan, with the 15-year forest management plan, the annual report.
And actually, we got that report today, so that got moved up on this one, okay.
So yeah, we're on task.
With what we
Yep.
have right now.
Yes, sir.
It's actually you have the Gandy update is April, which all these other ones will start coming.
Yep.
The well regulation ordinance,
I'm pushing that to ordinance season in November.
okay, the well one.
We need a planner on board to
To get some of
administer
this
that,
out,
yeah.
okay.
Because I was thinking of giving that to the new county planner whenever we hire that position.
Timber sales come back in April. We already did those, didn't we?
Those are getting
We haven't
postponed to May. Because of the weather, we haven't been able, the loggers haven't been able to get out there to put on a bid, so we're pushing that to May. I have an updated work plan. You'll see it at the next meeting.
Oh, okay,
So that's a little old. I've moved some things around.
sure,
So, but the updated one will be in the next packet for sure.
okay. That, yeah, some things that.
Gotta
got
get that
jumbled,
to-
Okay,
Shabana. Please remind me, Shabana, we have a new updated work plan.
No way.
all right. I guess just to go back on one. Worst scenario, Doug, if Brad and everybody want, if it gets that amendment, we could always take it off the county board, couldn't we? Even though it's in the consent agenda.
We're talking about both the shoreline and the comp.
Yeah, so we'd have to pull it out. I think.
That's a lot of work we're pulling,
Yeah,
we're
pull it and do
postponing.
that, yeah. Because we got it in the consent agenda, so we can move forward, don't we?
Mhm.
Okay,
It's the plan.
yeah, because if they were concerned, they should have been.
That's what we said.
That's what we said. Here's the business. That's a business meeting. Yeah. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Then, do we have an update from Doug on the Nortrack meeting?
When do you want to squeeze me in? If not, next meeting, maybe. It'll just be a 5-minute presentation. Well,
We're doing a lot of trail stuff and it's gonna be almost at the end of the snowmobile season. We should sneak in maybe this next one.
Okay, put Doug on you on the
Because then
15th
if
of
you have
May.
any up, for what a decent season was, we could throw a little of that in.
sure, I can throw that
And
in.
it keeps giving.
Yeah. For once, they sold them all, now it'll be 5 years before you do it again.
Keeps giving.
Yeah. Yeah, a 5-year drought where you ride it in 2 days and park it.
We're gonna have snow until
Right.
June.
Can we think that's should pretty much got us, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's everything. It's a lot.
Yeah.
That's why we meet. That's why we meet in February
That's why we met. Yeah, we didn't put it on. We'd have been,
twice.
We had to have lunch dates and stuff then to keep going. All right, Sharon, are you still on?
I think she left us.
She left. She said, "Hey, enough's enough."
What are we gonna do? We can't-
Oh, we can adjourn then, can we go?
We'll just,
Is what it is,
we'll
right?
have to just postpone till the next time to get your adjournment. So who's gonna give it? Tracy. Tracy, Tracy,
Yes, okay, yeah.
Tracy,
I'll second.
Doug will second. All those in favor? Aye, okay. Who survived?